All right, folks, we're live. Kaiju is more than likely going to be joining us later. We're not entirely sure. We're not entirely sure about when at the moment, because without going into too many IRL details, there's been some weather complications in her neck of the woods. So if she is able to join us, absolutely awesome. If not, we'd rather she be safe rather than having to brave the elements, as they say, because we want Win to be safe, happy, and, well, with us rather than must make it to computer in like 3 feet of snow. Yeah, the weather's going through some intriguing setups at the moment, so it's a case of, as we've said, folks, if she is able to get here, great. If not, it's not the first time she's not been here. But as with IRL, you can't mess with it. Try as we might. There's actually going to be a few topics of discussion. And since Kaiju is not here presently, and wrestling is not really his thing, and I doubt it will ever be. Although he seems to know who Stone Cold Steve Austin is, so it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yay.
One of the main topics regarding wrestling this week is the announcement that the first inductees into the 2019 WWE Hall of Fame is Degeneration X.
Woo!
Has to be said, I wasn't expecting them to go in this soon. Now, that's not to say it would be a situation where it would be 2030 by the time they got there. Nothing of that regard, but I was kind of expecting them to be like maybe the 25th anniversary of when DX was formed, because DX officially gave themselves a name around October, November 1997, when Shawn Michaels says, and I quote, "That's who we are, Degeneration X." Aaron's in the chat. What's happening, dudes? What's going down in Groovetown then? Not much. And trust me, dude, you see me on the dance floor. Nobody ever needs to see a guy with 4 left feet. I have so many bad moves that people before I even get to the floor be like, nope, -4 out of 10. Get off the floor. Some people have it, some people don't. I'm one of those people that was never even born with it, so we're just going to leave that there. I was expecting Lydia to laugh, but never mind.
I was laughing.
Okay. But like I say, I would have expected DX's induction to be a little bit further down the line. That's not to say that, I'm against them being inducted this year, but it's a little early. Now, what this does mean is for Shawn Michaels, he ties with Ric Flair in being a 2-time Hall of Famer. If he and Marty Jannetty go into the Hall of Fame down the road one of these days as the Rockers, then he'll be the only 3-time Hall of Famer. The one main highlight that has been talked about is China going into the Hall of Fame. Granted, it's with DX, but this has to be said, overdue. Well overdue. Because Triple H had said on the Stone Cold podcast when he was a guest that, China's deserving to go into the Hall of Fame. Bit of a problem with that when, people could, oh, China, I've never heard of this person before. And then they look at the results. Triple H, you do know there is such a thing as a parent filter, right? It's not that difficult to do. I know you're not computer literate, which is ironic considering he has a Twitter, but that's another story. But all you got to do is put a parent filter on, look up China WWE, look at some of her matches, including the first woman to enter the Royal Rumble and the first woman to enter King of the Ring, and also something that doesn't really get talked about. When they talk about female empowerment and female progression in WWE. Did WWE forget that this is not only the first ever female Intercontinental Champion, but a 3-time female Intercontinental Champion? Did that just blow by them? Of course it is. It's WWE. Road Dogg and Billy Gunn going in as kind of overdue. X-Pac. And this is the other thing I just find it's a little bit ironic. You have X-Pac and Hogan that did alternative entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's overlooked, but not with China. This is what we like to call double standard. But
I think if anything, it's not overlooked because of the fact of who's running the company. Cough, Stephanie, cough.
Mm-hmm. I think with regards to China, it should have happened years ago, but I'm glad she's going into the Hall of Fame regardless. It's such a shame of the way circumstances took her tragically early. Because let's be honest, she kind of was on a downward spiral after what happened in 2001 and she was let go from the WWE through no fault of her own. Steph just didn't like the fact that her and Triple H were a thing, and she's like, "No, I'm just going to get rid of you." To my understanding, especially the way China told the story when she was having that video Skype call with Vince Russo. Also, here's a thing I find interesting. Russo, who's a born-again Christian, mad props to you, by the way, sir. Mad props.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think he'd have a somewhat dim view of China doing porn, but he says she was doing it just to make a paycheck. Now, whether he was doing this out of bias just because he's friends with her or he was looking at the other picture, but I would have thought if he's such a devotee, born-again Christian, he would be, raising more than just a rock eyebrow with that. But that's just that's just my observation with that. My stance with what China did, I think she was in a situation that she didn't really want to do, but at the same time, she had bills to pay. Do I applaud her? It's one of those ones you're kind of caught in the middle. He's like, I understand you need to pay bills, but you could have found other acting work. I'm just saying. But long story short, glad they're going into the Hall of Fame. And people saying, oh, Triple H is the first ever active wrestler to go into the Hall of Fame. Like Ric Flair? He was the first active wrestler to go into the Hall of Fame in 2008. Granted, he retired the night after with that career performance against Shawn Michaels. But come on, to say that he was the first active wrestler, come on.
Yeah.
And Triple H's inclusion to go into the Hall of Fame, I think his Hall of Fame nomination has been a while in the making. I think at some stage he will go in properly as a solo inductee, but I don't know. And I have a sneaking suspicion, and this is all it is, just a sneaking suspicion, he's going to announce his retirement from in-ring competition at this year's Hall of Fame and maybe WrestleMania. Because once you go into the Hall of Fame, do you really still continue to wrestle? Not really. The only exception you can make with that is Hogan, because he went into the Hall of Fame spring of '05 and was actually still wrestling a couple of matches down the line. Granted, it was part time, but he was still wrestling. So those are my thoughts with regards to that. Be interesting to see who else goes into the Hall of Fame this year. And I have a sneaking suspicion Rock may go in as well because they might save him for next year, or they might push him in with DX because him and DX were on the rise at the same time as each other at that particular timeline in 97, 98. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Or hell, maybe that The Rock could induct them into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Or what if you got the Nation of Domination to induct them?
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I'd be up for that. I mean, just seeing Farouk I'm sorry, Ron Simmons, because he abandoned the Farouk persona late 2002 before he disappeared, then came back with JBL as the APA.
Yeah.
I think the APA will go in at some stage as well. That'll be an interesting setup. But again, long-winded. Those are my thoughts. Great to see them go in. Lids, do you think DX are going in at the right time? And what are your thoughts with regards to China? Like me, do you think it's long overdue?
Well, in regards to DX being inducted soon, not really. Doesn't feel soon to me. I feel like probably would have happened sooner or later. Just I wasn't expecting China to be uh, among them. To be fair, because of all the history that she has with that company and all that, but I'm glad she's in there. It's well deserved because, like you said, they're hyping up the women's revolution or anything. Who who was one of the freaking founders of that? The pioneers? No, not pioneer so much as someone who helped help it move it along to see women are more than just valets and just eye candy.
Yeah.
Hell, if anything, like women like China would probably made women like, let's say, Trish Stratus or Lita step up their game.
Yep.
So, but all in all, it's like I'm glad that they're getting inducted. I'm glad China's getting her due. Long overdue, considering the fact that it might be a long way before she's inducted by herself. And same, I think the same could be go for X Pac, to be honest, because Sean Waltman, oh boy, he's
Yeah.
got some long braids, but I'm glad he's getting inducted. Like a lot of them wouldn't get inducted on their own. Maybe Road Dogg and China and X Pac, but do we really see Billy Gunn getting his own induction on his own? Let's be
No.
honest, not
No.
really. So yeah, but it's like I'm glad they're getting inducted, and it's like the build up now is seeing who's gonna induct them in. So I'm glad. I'm excited. Good for them.
Um, I don't know if it was my brother or someone else brought this up.
Mm-hmm.
What about Rick Rude?
Oh yeah! Oh my god! I completely forgot about Rick Rude.
IRS.
Yes.
And also, by extension, what about Mike Tyson? He was part of DX, albeit for a month plus spare change, but he was a DX member.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
So I think they need to add Rude and Tyson to that because.
Or at least
And,
mention them in some regard.
and the original Tory.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one seems to remember her.
Yeah.
Because last time I saw her was on an episode of Sunday Night Heat with Raven when she was unmasked as the ninja.
Oh, that was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing.
How did they
Uh,
block that out?
oh, I don't know. Raiden, same question to you. Like with me and Liz, do you think it's well overdue for China?
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. It's like I feel like yeah, the women's revolution is doing well, but I feel like people that don't know about her truly forget like what she really meant to women's wrestling as a whole. You know, like it will like push in everyone's faces like it just happened. I think what I missed. Like it just happened without just like pushing in your face. Women's revolution, women's revolution, women's revolution. I'm like, come on. It's like it has to be said like you can do a women's revolution without
Oh,
Okay.
I think we lost him.
over and over and over on a tag. How about just tone that shit down? Because we are some people already like women's wrestling as it is. So like why keep pushing it in our faces? Because oh, I don't know, merchandise, I guessing. But off to the real topic. Yeah, I think it's way overdue for China because she's done so much for women's wrestling as a whole. And it's like, yeah, it's happy that she's going to be in alongside DX, but hopefully, like real soon, she gets her own wing because I feel like she truly deserves it. With DX, I feel like it's overdue as well, especially with all the crazy shit they've done over the years. I feel like, yeah, it's definitely Hall of Fame worthy. Yeah, there's some questionable guys like, of course, X Pac and all that. But when you look past the positives, like Shawn Michaels getting another ring and Triple H getting his first ring now, it's definitely going to echo what's going to happen at next year's Hall of Fame induction. Because the way I see it is like I feel like Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair will induct Triple H in the Hall of Fame, and it's like you know it's gonna be extra special. So, with that said, happy DX got into the Hall of Fame. I'm glad China's getting something after busting her ass many times when she was in that company.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, pretty good. Hopefully, trying to get something over the years when inside the company doesn't, pull their heads out their asses like stop letting, long time grudges, you know, get in the way of what the fans really want, you know?
But then again, if Vince McMahon and Warrior could make peace, not to say that it couldn't have happened whilst China was still here. And it's like I said, it's such a shame that she isn't here because I know that she would have been choked to pieces. She would have been crying and bawling at it because it's like, hey, you helped women to be taken more seriously in the WWE. And I found with China, particularly around late 98 going into early 99, because if you remember when she first came in, she was muscular and someone's described her as looking as butch beyond all recognition because when she first came in there was muscles upon muscles upon muscles, yet what happened in I think it was August or September of 98, she ended up breaking her jaw and being fed food for a straw, and she ended up losing about, I think it was about 10 to 20 pounds of muscle weight and body weight, which gave her a slightly more feminine look, which she ended up quite enjoying. And she was one of those few women who could not only still look great muscular, but you could look at her and go, "Can I take you out for coffee?" I kind of like because she was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I've noticed because I noticed one time, I think it was at Insurrection 2000 when it was Jericho versus Eddie Guerrero. Both were Intercontinental and European champion respectively, but they had to have a coin toss to see which title would be on the line. And I don't know who did China's makeup at that point, but I was looking at the time going, "How you doing?" Because I mean, some people gave me flack. I was like, "Why are you liking that muscular woman for?" I'm like, "I think she's hot." And she was, when she was at that particular physique, she looked, visually appealing to me. I thought, hey, or I think Will Smith said it the best one time in Fresh Prince. Hey. Although I think the more priceless one that's ever been done. Remember the Mama No segment?
Yes.
Oh yes, that's my favorite.
And it's just the way Ash will go, hey. I'm like, that's adorable.
Oh, the boss puts out of the room. Oh, what is this, a pajama party? Scooch over.
And you're like, and Uncle Phil's like, oh, get your ass over there. Carlton is like one of those guys where he makes like the geekiest guy look normal, if that's even possible. I mean, nice enough guy, but you're just like, okay, dude, you're making us look bad. Turn it down just a tiny bit. But yeah, long story short, news for the Hall of Fame. I don't know what other kind of inductees we're going to be getting this year. I'd like to see some more overdue ones get put in. And I've noticed in the last few years, when you're seeing the likes of Jeff Jarrett, of all people, get inducted, considering the shitstorm he left with the company in 99, the fact that he can get put in, it makes you wonder who else is going to get put in the next few years. I mean, are we actually going to see, say, Buff the Stuff Bagwell get inducted next year?
Oh my god. I mean, it would be interesting,
but Steve's actually saying, dare I ask what happened in 1999? Oh, China was the first woman to enter the Royal Rumble, which was the tagline for that Royal Rumble was "No Chance in Hell," which was also the first time we heard the theme of Mr. McMahon's "No Chance in Hell," which was also the theme of the Royal Rumble, which, guys, if you also think about it, it's the 20th anniversary of that I Quit match for the WWF title between Rock and Mankind. That match was brutal.
Yeah, them damn chair shots, man.
It was supposed to be only like, I think 6 or 7. Mick ended up taking 17. And I'm like, how on God's green earth have you not suffered brain damage? Because, I mean, even when you have Michael Cole, when he was standing in for JR, because JR had another issue of Bell's palsy, which, folks, just for the record, that's not to be sniffed at. If you see someone who suffers with Bell's palsy, don't mock them. Seriously, not cool. Even like Michael Cole is begging for The Rock to stop. Granted, he's probably scripted to say it like that, but you can sort of look at it and think, when a commentator who's supposed to be unbiased is saying, stop it, come on. And the only reason that match happened is because Mick Foley refused all the other possible stipulations. And The Rock says, well, The Rock just quit at giving you any kind of opportunities. And he just goes, that's it. That's the match type that we want. And it's like basically having a submission match, but instead of submitting physically via tap out, you're basically saying, I quit. And I was surprised at how volatile Mick was getting on the mic, particularly when at one time you could actually hear him say as clear as day on the mic, up yours, Rock. I'm like, I appreciate this is Attitude Era, but that's going a bit too far. Granted, it was probably in the heat of the moment, but you're like, I don't know. But then again, they did things in the Attitude Era that it wouldn't fly today. Kind of like bra and panty matches.
Yeah, that's a relic for its time, and that should stay there.
Here's the thing. If you're, a teenager who's like 18 or 19 around 99, 2000, you look at it for what it is, but then you look back at Larry and you're like, you know, it's one of those things. It was good for its time, and I'm saying that at a stretch, because some will say it was good, others will be indifferent, others will be like, hell no. But it drew people into, to Monday Night Raw because it was always the sort of thinking of you never knew what was going to happen next, whereas today you can telegraph it by about 2 months before any of the episodes go by because it's gone that predictable. But it was must-see TV back then. I'd like to see the WWE try to do more of what they did with China back then. I mean, here's the thing, and I will say this free of charge to whoever's listening, where it's Triple H. I doubt Vince McMahon. The internet. Well, that's okay, Vince. We think so lovely about you. We want to go have a picnic with you as well. No sarcasm. Here's an idea free of charge. Why not do something that not one of us is thinking of? Your next United States champion, Alexa Bliss. Do it. Free of charge. Or do the one thing that you were going to do for China but never came to pass. Make the very first female WWE champion. Because if you recall, leading up to SummerSlam 99, she was the #1 contender for a week.
Yeah.
Before they decided to change things up and make a triple threat match with Triple H, Foley, and Austin, and China's back by Triple H's side again, like nothing happened. I'm like, no, guys, no, come on. Actually make China the #1 contender. Because, all right, it would have been a different kind of match with her and Austin, but to hear Michael Finkel say winner and new champion, China, can you imagine how many tickets and ratings that would have gotten for them?
Yeah. Oh, they would have gone through the roof. And especially considering the fact that he's doing everything to try to freaking fix the ratings. Yeah, calling up a bunch of NXT guys just to fix the problem ain't helping.
I mean, through a business standpoint, I kind of get it, especially how Road to WrestleMania over the years has been very mediocre and boring. So, like, bringing up the four guys, like, I get it, but us wrestling fans know the history of NXT call-ups, not named Charlotte or Seth Rollins or Alexa Bliss. Oops, did I say that? Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
I think what they really need to do, and this is just my 2 cents of it, go back and look at Road to WrestleMania years past, particularly with how they made the build between Batista and Triple H. They did a slow, progressive build where you cared about what was going into that story and actually fleshed Batista's character out, and the payoff was absolutely brilliant at WrestleMania 21. I think what they've got to go back to, because the thing I've noticed what they're doing now, there's almost like a pay-per-view and a half every month, because If you go back to 2005, you'd have the Rumble, SmackDown would have No Way Out, then you go to WrestleMania, and then it would be the Raw pay-per-view. February and March would be the perfect time to do a lot of story building for the Raw main event for WrestleMania. How can you possibly build any story to WrestleMania when you've got two pay-per-views between the Rumble and Mania itself? I feel like they're not learning from years past, because if you go back to, say, I think it was 2004, they had 14 pay-per-views during that year, because there was, I think, two pay-per-views within 3 weeks of each other. One was, I think it was Vengeance for Raw, and then about 2 to 3 weeks later, it was the Great American Bash for SmackDown. It was just like, just go, 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 and not Power Rangers, oddly enough, afterwards. Although the character of Avatar that Al Snow played, apparently that's what Vince McMahon used to base that character on, because Power Rangers was popular at the time, and he just used Al Snow as his little guinea pig for it, which Al Snow doesn't really think too highly of to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to 2016, and this is when you brought back in the new ECW. There were 16 pay-per-views that year.
I think you meant 06, right?
Hmm?
I think you meant 06, right?
That's what I said, 2006. Because they brought 16 pay-per-views, because that's why I said they brought in the new ECW, the one that nobody likes to talk about these days. The very watered-down ECW. 16 pay-per-views is too much. I think what they really need to do is just do a method of, for all the big ones, so from WrestleMania, so from the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania, you have the No Way Out event for February, because that's the last pit stop, and then throughout March, it's just a build-up for all the major feuds, and then you have Backlash, and of course, well, for circa 2000 would have been Judgment Day, then bring in King of the Ring. But after SummerSlam, just have like one major pay-per-view between that and Survivor Series, just so that you could really build the stories up. Because Survivor Series in the last few years, they've rushed it really, really badly. I mean, last year's Survivor Series, I think they had like a 2-week build-up for it.
Yeah.
And you know how well the rush jobs happen for the WWE. It never ends well. I mean, some stories need to end quicker than they should have gone on for. But there are some where it's just like, 2 weeks, you're not really giving me any incentive to care about this. If you give me, say, 4 weeks to actually get me invested in the stories that are going into it, look at what team is wrestling who, then it's like, okay, I have a reason to care. But 2 weeks, no, it's too quick. It's a rush job. Raiden, are you of a similar thinking to that, or do you have a different perspective to bring to the table?
What do you mean?
Do you feel like they should really sort of, actually elongate the actual build to some of these major pay-per-views, rather than just having multiple pay-per-views in between the larger ones, rather than take their time and actually build the story and actually allow some of the wrestlers to have a bit of character growth, like Batista's back in 2005?
I mean, nowadays, now that All Elite Wrestling is trying to get is getting traction and getting built, they had to, because if they keep like pushing multiple papers like that, it's like you said, it's going to cause like major burnout, and fans are just not going to be, they're just not going to be interested in WWE anymore. Like, I feel like like you said, they got to really trim down on these pay-per-views, because they keep doing this. It's like the more fatigue you get, the more your wrestlers are gonna just suffer injuries. And like, you know, some of it worked in favor, but some of it has been a little, you know, up and down. You know, like for example, Mustafa Ali was supposed to do the Elimination Chamber, but sadly he had to pull out because of concussion.
Ooh.
So what they
and then
so
they
what they
replaced him with Kofi Kingston.
yeah, and since then it's just built yeah, it's built up a great movement of that. It's like they just really want to see this guy get the championships, something that should have been done so many years. So the way I see it is like they keep going on with this, and Vince will just really just think instead of just rushing and just not let personal preferences get in the way of things.
Yeah.
It's like WWE can be successful, but keeps it up. It's just gonna continue going a downward spiral. I mean, so far it's been doing well, and notice I said well because I feel like my premonition is the way they're gonna build Doors of WrestleMania is just solely on Charlotte, Ronda, and Becky, and it's like they're just so their heads so far up in the women's revolutions behind. It's like they're not going to, how can I say, focus on anything else. It's like it's their personal gold mine, and I feel like that will just destroy anything that's saying, we're gonna change this, we're gonna change that. It's like keep doing that, you're gonna keep go back on your word, and like WWE half of the time don't have logic at all. It's their kryptonite in a sense. So I feel like the way I think they should change things, get rid of gimmick pay-per-views, because I feel like the more you do that, it diminishes the special match type itself, and just chill with the whole programming. I mean, it's good to have programming on WWE Network and all that, but it's like you keep doing that, the more we want more wrestling, and that says like we really don't give a shit about the fans. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just like calm down on gimmick stuff. Go back on names like No Mercy, No Way Out, make King of the Ring a pay-per-view again. You know,
Please.
just yeah, most definitely. That's I feel like King of the Ring has been very diminished, especially with past winners. So I think with that said, like I said, just calm down on other pay-per-views. So Raw and SmackDown gets breathing room. Like I think one SKO we talked about the Iron Man match between Angle and Lesnar, and that was during when Raw had their pay-per-view Unforgiven. So do stuff like that. Like just give the shows more. Give the shows more meaning with matches like that, instead of just like pushing the narratives of like sports entertainment this, sports entertainment that. Like, yeah, it's a sports entertainment, but you gotta get a hold of wrestling itself in order to please fans. And I know some fans can be self-entitled and all that, but wrestling fans as a whole builds the backbone of wrestling itself. Is because you don't have that, why are you still operating? So I think with that said, so I can stop going on a tangent, because mainly wrestling to me is like very, very important, because whenever I feel down, I watch wrestling just to get myself up in the morning and whatnot. So okay, in conclusion, I feel like in the next couple of years, they need to just calm down on matches. It's calm down on multiple pay-per-views. Stick to one basic formula, and with that said, they could be successful again, like in the old days.
Yeah.
The only match type pay-per-view that I would like to see. Get rid of all the rest of them. Like, get rid of TLC, just put Armageddon back there, or just put in Roadblock, end of the line. Which WWE, you owe me money, because that was a pay-per-view name I came up with for Fantasy Wrestling League about 16 years ago. Where's my royalties, damn it? Um, the only one I'd like to see kept is Money in the Bank, because
yes,
one particular Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and this was the one that outshone WrestleMania that year, 2011. That was the best pay-per-view of the year. Even like the Wrestling Observer newsletter gave that the pay-per-view of the year, because everything was done right that night. You had two Money in the Bank winners. I wasn't expecting Del Rio to get his. I wasn't expecting Daniel Bryan to get his, although it was a nice progression for him. But everything was all centered around CM Punk that night, and it was just done perfectly. I don't think we need to see the Money in the Bank go back to a WrestleMania match like it was for a few years in a row. But it was actually, in some weird way, it wouldn't be a bad thing if it became a WrestleMania staple in a similar vein to how the Andre the Giant Battle Royale is a staple. But don't be surprised if that becomes its own pay-per-view itself, which would kind of diminish the thing a little bit. I tend to sort of, I actually pretty much agree with Raiden's mindset with this. Just stick with, the big classic five: Rumble, Mania, King of the Ring, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, but only with maybe 3 or 4 after that. Because again, like we say, give some of these pay-per-views time to breathe, to really actually make us care about some of these. Of course, remember back in 2010 on the subject of gimmick pay-per-views, remember when Fatal 4-Way was a pay-per-view? I have one question. Why?
Because fuck you, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, Hell in a Cell, I don't really mind that so much as a gimmick pay-per-view, but I feel like when it went on for a few more years, I'm like, you're kind of diminishing the match itself. The same thing with the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. And here's another thing that I'm getting slowly getting sick and tired of, is when they make them say as an announcement, at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, it's like, just say the Royal Rumble. We know it's a pay-per-view. You don't need to add it onto that. It just sounds really contrived and condescending when they do that. At the TLC pay-per-view, at the Hell in a Cell, it's like, we know it's Hell in a Cell. We know it's Elimination Chamber. Funny how they never say at WrestleMania pay-per-view. But then again, every child and their grandmother have at least heard what WrestleMania is. To add on pay-per-view at the end of it, it's just like, we know it's a pay-per-view. Why are you talking down to us like we're 4? But then again, it's Steph, so it says everything it needs to.
He's treating us like our kids. Here are the keys to the car. Here, car keys. I'm like, we're not 5. Shut up.
I'd be, if I was Stephanie's son, and saying that just makes me want to cringe. I'd be very, very concerned. Imagine like that. Hello, Raiden. I am Stephanie. I'm your mother. Bitch, get the hell away from me.
Nope.
Mind you, Lids would be the same thing. It was like, oh, hi, I'm Nikki Bella. I'm your sister. No, the fuck you ain't.
No, I'm like, no, it's not acknowledged.
Oh dear, we have awakened the Brian.
Anything, Hell in a Cell, like the match itself, it's kind of lost its mystique. It's like it used to be like Hell in a Cell used to be this is it, this is where the feud dies, this is where we settle our differences. Now it's just like, what have a Hell in a Cell? Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't see the point of having a pay-per-view of it now when you
No.
guys are just, I mean, if every match took place in a Hell in a Cell, that would definitely freaking at least that would bring it down a little bit, but it'd still be interesting.
But then again, in what was it, 2015 or 2016, we had the first ever women's Hell in a Cell for the Raw Women's Championship. And although it didn't quite go the way I was expecting, both Charlotte and Sasha Banks proved they could hang in that match, which I wasn't expecting them to do that, but they're no ordinary athletes when it comes to those two.
Mm-mm.
And let's be honest, and Sasha, I say this with the deepest respect, but if it wasn't for the women's tag team titles, what were you gonna do? You've been out of the women's title picture for longer than I'd care to know. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they brought the women's tag titles back because it's been a long time. It's something that should have happened years ago, but could have, would have, should have. Let's just move on. Her and Bailey, they haven't had anything useful to do. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I mean, I feel like if Vince is going to go off to do the XFL full time, which is scary in its own right, I think with Triple H to come in, provided this is the edict that they're going to go with, I think he will, solve a lot of problems because if he can do for the main roster that he did with NXT, he will actually convince me to reactivate my network account because I've not watched a single pay-per-view since SummerSlam. And to be fair to last year's SummerSlam, it was all right. It wasn't amazing, but it was enough to make me care. But from what I've been hearing since then, the pay-per-views have been either meh or bleh.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently with this year's Rumble as well. Because, Pete, dude, we had our conversation saying that the Rumble was fine, but it went on too long.
Yeah, oh my god. For me, that shit didn't end till like 12.
Here's the thing. For WrestleMania to be 5 hours, which I questioned that even now, when WrestleMania was 4 hours long, that was fine. You had the build up, you had a little bit more time just to let matches have more time to do as they need to. But when you make that 5 hours long, it's a bit much. I mean, SummerSlam and Survivor Series going up to 4 hours. I mean, Oni, if you're listening to this later, we called this 7 years ago this August when we did the review for SummerSlam 2012. It's like, what does it say when we get to a point where like every other pay-per-view goes to 4 hours and WrestleMania goes to 5 hours? Because Raw going to 3 hours is not helped the product. If anything, it's hindering it. And 7 years on, they're not learning this. Because the human attention span can only take so much. And according to A-Law, because this is actually in the review panel, he said that according to his dad, the human attention span is only about the length of 7 seconds. Times that by 3 hours. Yeah. So If it was a thing where, let's say for the sake of discussion, the kickoff was only an hour and WrestleMania itself is 4 hours, then I don't have a problem. But when WrestleMania itself feels like a day event, as in, WrestleMania spills over into the early hours of the morning for you guys over there, because for me, Mania kicks off at midnight in the UK and doesn't finish up until about 5 in the morning. And by that time, I'm spent, which, Lids, you know this for yourself as well when we were watching last year. By the time it was getting like halfway through the pay-per-view, I'm like, I need another can of Monster. I'm not going to be able to make it.
Oh, you were out of it. You fell asleep on us. I'm like, is he okay?
Oh, bro, even if I wasn't there, I was conked out, and I like missed half of the whole show when I watched some of the matches. So I'll probably do that. So if we do that this year, I'll probably definitely be there because I'll kind of sort of turn my half wrestling brain off there. But I'll try if I stay awake.
Well, as if you recall, during the 2017 Royal Rumble reactions, and it's all there for people to see, I was falling asleep halfway through the Rumble. Then all of a sudden, at the end, I'm hearing Randy Orton's music play. I'm like, wait, Cena's champion. Orton's like, oh my gosh!
Oh my god! Oh man! When we heard entry number 30, Roman Reigns. Oh my god! I know. Me, Oni, and Grok were just like, oh my god, why?
It's like, nope.
And also Orton with the wires. That was an interesting one.
Yeah!
Well, until the build up to their wrestling.
Yeah, and then the match itself with the projections in the ring, that was a bit much.
Oh, and let's not forget the House of Horrors match. Why?
Oh my god.
Apparently, according to Elman, that was the funniest thing he'd seen all year.
I don't blame
charm, but no.
The title wasn't even on the line for that match. It was just like, let's just have a match. Okay. Speaking of other matches, I think we've said what we needed to about DX going to Hall of Fame. I think we've overdone it with that itself. This March is the 20th anniversary of Rock versus Austin from WrestleMania.
Which one? 17?
No, 15. Because the 20th anniversary for that will be 2 years from now.
Oh, okay.
Austin has said on his Hell Yeah DVD, although he takes nothing away from the match he had with Shawn Michaels, because, to say that, you won your first world title by defeating the Heartbreak Kid, that in its own right is something to be proud of. But when you look back at the match with Rock and Austin, it's one of those matches it will go either way, and it's just so fast paced, and it's like both of them have said respectively they bring out the best in each other. And that match from Mania 15, I can happily watch that to this day and still be wowed by it, because it was just a fast paced, I wouldn't call it a catch as cats can type of match, because that's the sort of thing you think of. It was like Ric Flair versus Shawn. But Rock and Austin, that was just a great match, even if there weren't too many wrestling clinic holds and maneuvers put in. That was something where you come away from that thinking, I got my money's worth, and then some. And also, let's not forget, at the time, Austin was going through another divorce. And he looks back at that match saying, that actually helped me out a lot, because then apparently when he got backstage, he just collapsed from what I remember reading, because there was so much stuff going on, and he was actually just grateful just to get that match, just to have that match, because it actually helped him take his mind off things. Although the funniest thing to this day, and I just love how this happened, Timmy White was holding his arm up to say, well, if it goes down again, he's submitted. Austin just flips the bird, saying, I ain't going out from this match. But that's just true to Stone Cold's nature. Did what he wanted when he wanted. And, even The Rock said on his Know Your Role VHS at the time, because I don't think it was out on DVD originally, he actually said, I'll give Austin this. It took 2 stunners to put away The Rock, because usually it's just like 1 stunner and done, but it took 2 to put The Rock down. And the match they had with each other at Backlash the month after, first off, that was just a way for The Rock to have, well, it was just a way to have a rematch. But it was also in story form for Austin to get back his Smoking Skull belt, which that has got to be the best custom belt to this day for any world title. But again, long tangent. First meeting between those two from WrestleMania 15. It's not a rivalry. It's a rivalry, and the chemistry you're not likely to see for some time in the future, because the two just clicked instantly. They didn't travel up and down. There was always something between Rock and Austin, in a similar vein to Shawn and Brett, despite the fact how much those two hated each other at the very end of their respective times in WWE, but they always managed to produce magic. In a similar vein to CM Punk and Cena, although Punk is always going to be the better wrestler. Sorry, Cena, face the facts. But
yep,
Rock and Austin. And it's a time in wrestling where, Jericho has said on Stone Cold's Bottom Line and Dwayne The Rock Johnson's journey is, in every generation you get like one megastar. Like so many moons ago it was Hogan, currently it's Cena. But in the Attitude Era, we had 2. I don't think you're ever likely to see that ever again. I'll be very surprised if it does happen. But they're 2 polar opposites, but they're very similar in some respects. Rock, I felt, always did the better promos, whereas people could relate more to Austin because he was the blue-collar guy, walking up and doing things whether you wanted to or not, because nobody else could do that. And like I say, the payoff from that match was just amazing, and it would lay the groundwork for many things to come. Raiden, what are your thoughts from that match in particular at Mania 15? And all the other various elements that were going on around at the time. Because obviously at the time, the Ministry of Darkness and the Corporation was going on at the time. Do you think there are things that can be learned from that particular match as well? And do you think it still holds up?
Well, I don't have that much memories of their WrestleMania 15 match, but I've seen highlights of it per se, and I felt like it was a cool moment. But I feel like even though 1999 WWF at the time was like uber popular, especially with Stone Cold appearing in everything, mainly Celebrity Deathmatch. so even though WWF as a whole at that time was like, in a way, had one of the worst periods with like too many like stables and whatnot. I say popularity wise, I think it worked in their favor, and I think the year after in 2000, I felt like they had a good grip grip on things, especially like having one set stable in the McMahon Helmsley faction. I felt like, it kind. I think what I'm trying to say is you can have the worst period in wrestling per se, but it all I think it all culminates when you have like that one set storyline that changes everything. Like probably in Armageddon '99 again with Triple H versus Vince McMahon, and after that he wasn't even seen until before WrestleMania 2000. So I think I think with that match between Austin and Rock, I felt like the tide had to turn in order for like the right people to be get put over. And I think in the end of that time it was Triple H. So I think what I'm trying to say is, like I said, you can have a worse period with a wrestling company, but I feel like it all comes ahead when you had past years that people still talk about to this day. You can still have that popularity. I think that's like the main thing.
All right, thanks for that.
No problem.
Lids, same question to you. Did you see this on pay-per-view, or was this one of those ones where maybe like my situation, you see it in highlights on one of Austin's videos and then go to see the match afterwards? Do you think it still holds up? And yeah, what's your recollection of it? Do you think it still holds up?
Well, again, that's something that I had to watch later because again, I didn't exactly have access to pay-per-views at that point, and I had to watch it later, and it does hold up. It's like you can sense the rivalry between these two individuals, and it's just the animosity, how much they hate each other, even though now I can see Rock and Dwayne and Stone Cold having like say, "Hey, you want to get a beer?" Yeah, sure. like nothing ever happened. But it's like that's the amount of respect both of them have for each other, and it's just that match is it still holds up. I think so.
The weirdest thing, I didn't pay too much attention to this at the time when I first got Hell Yeah on VHS in late 99 and then on DVD a few years later. At the time, they were playing what I just presume was just generic WWE scores whilst the match is going on. But then later on, after I've heard Hardcore Hollies, Titantron, and the Hardys, I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard these before, and they're actually playing said Titantron themes as as something just to go along with the highlight reel, and the Hardys music kicks in just as Austin's winning the title back for a third time. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what to make of this, but it works for what it's trying to do. But Hell Yeah, I felt as one of his DVDs. It's where he's very honest, and it's actually one of the very first, like what I like to call profile videos where he's breaking character, and you actually see him like behind the set, and he talks about the character build-ups and what have you. It was breaking kayfabe long before it got burnt down when the internet got more advanced. Because keep in mind, folks, we're talking around a time where we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have YouTube, Facebook wasn't probably not even a twinkle within Zuckerberg's eye. Although, given current affairs, that might have been a good thing, but that's another story. The only way we would find out what would happen on Monday Night Raw back in early 99 was to check WWF.com, and I could only really do that at either at college or over at my buddy Pete, because he had a computer before I did. I didn't get my first computer till just before my 18th. So, and I'm still looking at it. Big old clunky piece of you know what. But no, it was just a different time, and I felt like. And here's the thing: they actually leaked a script from an episode of Raw from '99. Most of it is just highlight points. It's just bullet points to say, highlight this, but have a little bit of freedom to make it your own thing. Whereas now, everything is scripted down to the most microscopic detail, and that's where they're going so wrong. You know, let the wrestlers find their own voice. Let them find the ability to find the character on their own, rather than like, okay, we have this character made for you. It's like, now do as we say. It's like, no wonder half of these characters don't work. But it is what it is. And I was looking over some of Rock's old promos from '99. Some people like to think of his persona from that era as a hybrid of Elvis Presley and Muhammad Ali, which I'm like, okay. I wouldn't have necessarily made that comparison, but I could definitely see the Ali part, because Ali could talk a good game, more than just a good game, because he probably, you know, was doing trash talking well long before Rock was doing it. But wow, yeah, I don't know if I would have made that comparison, but Rock's promos in '99 and 2000, they were legendary. He was doing like this one promo just leading up to Survivor Series '99, and then he starts to talk about Road Dogg, and then you just hear someone from the crowd goes, "It doesn't matter what his name is," and he just goes, "Yes, people, you are right. It doesn't matter what his name is, but for the record, he is Road Dogg Jesse James." I'm like, Rob, were you committing savagery? Because he would go to some places, probably not as graphic as Jericho did before he dropped the trash bag promo in June of 2000, which I'm amazed McMahon okayed that. I'm like, dude, that's your daughter. It's like, but she must have been okay with it, and it's weird. Nowadays, I prefer the way Steph talks, because compared to how she spoke in 2000, nails on a chalkboard don't quite cut it. Especially like during the whole Alliance saga, which I was glad that died a short death when it did. Ugh.
Yeah.
That was botched beyond all recognition. But no, I think to close off, Raiden, I think we're both suffering from going on tangents, but you know, it's wrestling, so we can allow it. WrestleMania 15, folks, if you've never seen WrestleMania 15 before, if you have the network, go in and look at it. It's going to be 3 hours of pure bliss if you're a wrestling fan. You'll probably enjoy it more than the current product, which is not so much. Or if you're able to find it on DVD, heck, if you're able to find Mania 15 on DVD that bears the WWF logo, keep it. That will be worth a lot of money to you, because anything past 2002 is just WWE all the way. But it's going to be one of those. Here's the thing. Because DVD was still relatively brand new tech in '99, do you notice the frame rate was a little bit glitchy in places? It looked like the characters were, you know, the wrestlers were trying to do the robot in some weird way. Although imagining the idea of Rock and Austin doing the robot together, that'd be like, okay, that's weird. Oh, I thought I would get a few more laughs, but never mind. We'll move on to another one. Now, this is a potential topic of discussion because I have a feeling that we may have discussed this before, but do correct me if we have. This June is going to mark the 10th anniversary of Michael Jackson's passing.
Oh,
wow. Man, that's crazy.
All I gotta say is this: I do agree with the statement of you could tell people exactly where you were the moment you heard over the news that Michael Jackson had passed on. I could tell you exactly where I was. I was at a traffic stop with one of my buddies. Oddly enough, we were going out to get my first ever Blu-ray player because Ghostbusters had come out on Blu-ray to mark the 25th anniversary of the original release date of the first movie. And because Blu-rays had come down in price by 2009, because if you go back to 2006, I think like the most affordable Blu-ray player was the equivalency of like $600, whereas by the time 2009 came around, they were like 210, which for 2009 standards, that's somewhat reasonable, whereas now you can get like a decent Blu-ray player for like $90. Depends on where you're looking, but just remember this, folks. If you pay cheap, you buy twice. Keep that in mind. Evening to Trekkie. Says, good evening from Germany.
hey,
good
how's
evening.
it going?
Steve was just saying, I was told my mother I was still at school back 10 years ago. I was going to say, 100 years ago, dude, what did you do? Time travel with a DeLorean? Trekkie, we're not talking about movies at this moment. At the moment, the topic of discussion is this June will mark the 10th anniversary of when Michael Jackson sadly passed away. It was one of those moments where you were just in shock for quite a while because you're like, it was like, what, Michael's gone? And all from various radio stations, most people were playing like classic Michael Jackson tracks, whether it be Rock With You, Thriller, Bad, or the one that doesn't get a lot of attention, which is Fly Away, which is a personal favorite of mine. Trekkie, this June will be 10 years since Michael passed away. At the time, when you look at how Michael's health was, I say this with the deepest respect. I think had he not passed away at that point, I don't think it would have been too much further down the line because, as it's been more than documented, he's had a number of health problems for quite a few years. I think he had like a couple of joint problems leading up to that time, and he had like, I don't know if he was having chemotherapy at one stage, so it may have been misreading one particular news post. But you could tell that the man was having problems, and he was going to do the This Is It tour just to solve almost like a farewell thing, because you could see that he was not the same as he once before, but for like maybe to be given time to do like a couple of shows, you could see that he still had the passion to go. He could, provided it wasn't intense, he could pull off something that he could, you would walk away with thinking, I'm glad I actually paid money to see that. That was worth it. But to hear of the news, like I say, that he was gone, I didn't know what to think at the time. I was just in massive shock. It's like, we are now living in a world where Michael Jackson is no longer with us. It's like, at the time, I'm like, how do you process that? Because he's always been there, but we know that there's going to be more stuff coming from him because he's got like a vault filled with like 30 years worth of material, including Slave to the Rhythm, which has to be said, it's actually one of his better tracks. Especially if you saw what that one security guard was doing at that baseball game the other year, where he was showing that mascot how to do, Michael's moves more effectively, which, dude, if you're listening to that, serious thumbs up for that. But Michael, to me, is one of those artists. He's once in a lifetime or once in a millennium, because his songwriting, his dance choreography, he is worthy of being called a genius. For anything from Thriller to something basic like Rock With You, Off the Wall, or there's one from his Bad album. Oh, damn it! I'm now having to go look on iTunes a second. Damn it. Let's see. I'm trying to remember specifically. There's like this one track where he's trying to impress this girl, but it looks like it's out in the back streets.
The Way You Make Me Feel?
Yes.
Oh,
Random Kaiju appeared.
Hey, Kaiju.
Hey, everybody.
The way that music video was done, he was setting standards that so many people are only just now catching up or just matching what he did back then. And then you look at the stuff that he did for Earth Song, which today, that's eerily haunting. Even to this day, I find although it's still impressive, it's one of those music videos, it makes you think afterwards, which not many music videos or songs for that matter do that. And then, of course, the stuff he did for Thriller. I know you have your grievances with some of the content of that Raider, but you gotta admit, the stuff that he put into that music video, that was light years ahead of its time.
Oh, trust me, I do. I just don't want to go back to that because that shit still scares me.
I
mean, I think that's what's testing on how still good it is. It's good it is.
And even though and as Razor has highlighted with his Music Mythos series, Sony didn't really do enough to promote Invincible, because you could see with You Rock My World, Michael still had it even then, but Sony being Sony, they didn't choose to do the good thing. But Michael was a trailblazer back in the day, because you look at the stuff that he did, even when he wasn't really at the top of his game, he was still getting people to sit up and take notice. And I think he's in that same category. Like, there will only ever be one Madonna, there will be many people that are inspired by her and trained to be like her, but there's only ever going to be one of her. The same for Michael Jackson. There is only ever going to be one of him because he did things that nobody else was thinking of or even trying to do. And the fact that it's going to be 10 years this June, it's very sad because I think maybe he could have popped out a couple of more songs to surprise people with, given that he wasn't in the best of health at the time. But it's also a reminder of how much we miss him because there aren't many like him. And he had a range of songs that could fit any emotion or any situation. He could do the sad songs. He could do very, ones that make you think of, wonderful nostalgia or wonderful reflections. And he could do numbers where, like Kaiju mentioned, The Way You Make Me Feel, or Bad, or there's some stuff from Thriller that not too many people mention, like, PYT, Pretty Young Thing, which, Ash, if you're listening, you like that song too. It's just a really cool song, and I actually introduced her to that one, and she thanked me for it because she is the CEO. She is awesome. And to Raiden, the goddess. But great artist. So tragic of the circumstances of the way he left. And I think he's going to be one of those artists. He's still going to inspire people 50, 70, 100, 150 years into the future. They're all going to aspire to be that guy because it's like he said, he was a genius. And I don't think you're ever likely to see someone like him again, probably for not maybe decades or even a full century. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the benefit of jumping into a DeLorean at this point, but give me a lottery win. I'll try and make something happen. Maybe I'll go back in time and give Lydia last week's lottery numbers. Who knows?
Please. That'd be nice.
Raiden, your thoughts on the fact that it will be 10 years this June. What did Michael mean to you as an artist and as a person? And how do you think his legacy has been reflected onto him with what he's left behind?
Damn, man. Me and Michael Jackson go way back. I mean, me, mom, dad, my sister have like a deep connection with the guy, with his music, with his messages, and all of that. So anytime there's a Michael Jackson song, it's just special. It's kind of special in our household,
Mm-hmm.
And the way I found out about his passing when I was watching, I think it was called MTV Jams, and I saw Michael Jackson's video, and I saw RIP. I'm like, wait, what? No way, no. This ain't. I couldn't believe it at that. And I remember I was watching Transformers: Resurrection of the Fallen with my cousin, and then after that, when I heard about the radio station, I'm like, oh shit, it's true. It kind of hurt, but no person was hurt like than my own dad, who just worships the ground he walked on. So like, yeah, 10 years after his passing, it's like it's mentally tough because the guy was like you said, a friggin' genius in everything he does, and despite news articles slandering every chance they get, you can't take away that. Yeah, it's questionable, but we all know that. And Michael did not have a pretty good childhood, so you gotta take that into question, you know.
Mm.
So I say, with his legacy, I feel like that's still going to be there no matter what. I mean, you have a lot of artists that still look up to this guy to this day. You know, I mean, even though I don't have the nicest things to say about this guy, Chris Brown, who is easily one of MJ's biggest influences. But
Mm.
feel like that shows the impact the man has done. And also, like you said, music wise, he's not done by a long shot. So as long as there's a Beat It, there's a Rock With You, there's a Scream, there's a Thriller, that man's memory will never, ever, ever die.
No.
I mean, that's like what they say. It's like you don't truly die until like people still remember the great memories that you have. So
yeah,
it's gonna be really, really tough to go through that 10 years after his passing. But as long as you still have good memories about him, I feel like the King of Pop's legacy, like I said, will never disappear.
Mm. No, I'd have to agree with that. Thanks for your input, man.
No problem, man.
Lydia, I suppose same question to you is, when you had the news broken to you that Michael had gone, and what do you think of him as an artist, as a person then, and does his music still hold up long after his passing?
Oh yeah. I actually found out a bit about it literally when I was at work. I was just like at work. They have a TV setup where you can see the front of the television, and they say Michael Jackson dead. I'm like, no, they're lying. No. And then a confirmation got revealed to me. I'm like, oh shit. And not gonna lie, I like there were some times where it's like the allegations of him doing the things to those children, and
No.
that kind of affected me. But it could have been lies. I don't know, and I don't want to. I don't want to think about that. But yeah, it's just his music did have an effect on my childhood. It's like the one thing that kind of sticks with me is the song he did for Free Willy, because I
Oh
like that movie as a
yeah.
kid. It's like,
Oh, I heard
oh
that
my gosh,
again
you're
and
gonna make me
again and
cry
again.
now.
I mean, it's one of those songs. Or if you ever grew up with watching Free Willy, it's like the moment you hear do, it's like all of a sudden those like goosebumps of nostalgia just run through your body.
Like, just free the whale.
Oh no! Don't take me back to the fields.
No. But yeah, I do like. Also, I remember the song he did with Janet Jackson with what he did with his sister, and
Scream.
That's my all-time favorite. Not to mention he earned my respect for putting a lot of anime on there.
Yes, that was fun. It's just, and yeah, it's like apart from that, I'm glad we got what he got, and it's from him, and he'll always be remembered, even though some of it was tarnished by the allegations. But we're still gonna remember his music and who he was as a person. So we'll go with that.
Well, Razor has gone through. He's actually gone through two videos. How people and he have debunked all the allegations and what have you, and the fact that he got exonerated twice it kind of says, guys, this is not one of those situations, third time's the charm. Chances are, if you took him to court twice and you got nothing, chances are third time is not going to be the charm, because textbook insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result each time. I mean, we may never know exactly what happened, but I'd like to believe the man was completely innocent, because I think the only thing he's really guilty of was being himself, which was being a little bit odd, a little bit quirky, and a little bit eccentric, but
Not to mention a very deathly shy introvert.
yeah.
Yeah.
Most likely brought on by years of pressure, intense pressure and abuse from his father.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why he created Neverland in the first place.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because he didn't want to deal with the world.
Right. It like Neverland was essentially the ultimate safe space for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even like people like Macaulay Culkin would come to his defense and says, I don't know what you're talking about, he never did a thing. Again, we're never really truly going to know, but looking at like his little mannerisms and what have you, not him. No, that's just my opinion. For all I know, could be completely wrong. I'm hoping I'm not on this occasion, but I think the only thing he was guilty of was just being an eccentric, introverted, nice guy. I think that's the only thing he's guilty of.
Basically,
that and being one of the best dancers, singers, and writers ever. Because again, his music and his moves, they were well ahead of their time. And there are people that are still trying to emulate what he did 30, 40, or maybe even 50 years ago, because he did start very, very young. Maybe too young, because I think if he had been allowed to have a proper childhood, maybe he would have grown up with a different perspective. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, considering how music biopics are the thing at the moment with the advent of Bohemian Rhapsody, makes you wonder who would play Michael in a future biopic, because those are shoes you don't easily fill.
Let's see. I do recall seeing a Michael Jackson biopic like years ago. Maybe it was on the Lifetime channel. I'm not really sure which one it was. I'm trying to see.
It's a possibility. It could have been Lifetime, or you probably saw it on VH1.
Probably, yeah. And then maybe it had like reruns on some other channel that I saw. But this was like maybe in the early 2000s. But the movie itself looks like it was probably like a TV movie made in the 90s.
I do remember seeing there was the Jackson family story that was done like either over a course of like a two-parter, or it was done over a course of weeks, where you see the journey from the Jackson 5 starting out, then coming to doing a reunion show years later, and it was like down maybe like a year or two after Michael's accident on the set of that Pepsi commercial.
They definitely covered that part in the movie, from what I remember. It started off with the creation of the Jackson 5, and the movie ended with his performance of Billie Jean, where he first pulls off the moonwalk.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. Even though he didn't actually invent the moonwalk, because that was invented decades before that, but you see him do that over like the next 20 to 30 years, and you're looking thinking, how the fuck did you do that? Because it's just one of those things, if you know what you're doing, you can do it well, and it also helps if you know how to dance properly. And given my 4 left feet, that ain't happening anytime soon. I end up probably doing as bad as Homer Simpson did in that one episode where you see the impersonator doing it well, but Homer's actually walking forwards instead of backwards. It's like, Homer, that's not how it works. But oddly enough, from what I've heard, that was actually Michael in that role, but they had to find an impersonator or, sound alike for the singing segments. Apparently it was due to like a copyright issue, which I thought, okay, it's a little bit weird, but from what I've been told, that was actually him. And apparently he did actually confirm something I think just a few years before he died. He did work on the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 soundtrack. Because I noticed when you hear Stranger in Moscow and then hear the ending thing for Sonic 3, it sounds a little too coincidentally similar. Because you hear like all the other tracks they did and then hear like the non 16-bit version. It's like, wait a minute, this sounds very familiar. But one of a kind. Kaiju, where were you when you first heard the news that Michael had sadly gone? What are your thoughts on his legacy, and what do you think of him as a person and as a performing artist 10 years on?
Let's see. First, I think I found the movie. Although it wasn't a movie, apparently it was a 4-hour American miniseries broadcasted in 2 halves on ABC in November 1992 called The Jacksons, An American Dream.
That's the one.
Yeah, I remember seeing that too.
Yeah.
And let's see, who played adult Michael Jackson?
I think I know one.
Wiley Draper.
Oh,
maybe I'm pronouncing that right.
Draper, what did he do? I'm trying to figure out. Like, I don't recognize that name.
Yeah, it's like I'm clicking on the. It's funny. It's kind of funny but sad. I click on his name, which you would think would lead to a Wikipedia article of him, but no, it just takes me right back to the same Jackson page. But I'll just put it. I'll just put his.
I think I've known as of late.
Let's see. This is his name, so if you can Google him up while I'm talking. Let's see. So where was I during the announcement? I believe, I was in the living room just watching TV with the family. It was the middle of the day, and I got a text from my friend saying that Michael Jackson passed away. And at first I was like, nah, you're kidding, right? It just felt like so random. It came out of the blue because, everyone was pretty hyped to see Michael Jackson's This Is It tour. They wanted to at least see him perform just one more time, because for me, being a child of the 90s, it's like by the time I even knew who Michael Jackson was, he was already considered a joke. He was considered an outcast. People grew up knowing him as Michael Jackson the weirdo, not Michael Jackson the musical genius. Luckily enough, my parents, both of them, grew up with Michael Jackson throughout their teens, and they pretty much passed on that, like, their musical taste onto me, and I grew up listening to Michael Jackson, a lot of Michael Jackson's music, be it like the mostly off the wall, Thriller and Bad, that sort of era. Not so much post Bad, where he became, I guess, more. His songs didn't have the same kind of attitude once you entered the 90s. He was kind of into that sort of preachy, save the world sort of vibe, which, fine, that's all, respect to him for trying to use his music for a cause, but it didn't have that same sort of like raw attitude that I really enjoyed from the more of the golden age of Michael Jackson's earlier work. When I first heard that, I was shocked. My whole family was shocked. Eventually we saw it on TV and we were devastated. And it was a huge bummer to have, one of the world's greatest, most influential artists, no longer a part of this world. as for his legacy, it's sort of like what Babe Ruth, what Babe Ruth said in the Sandlot movie. What was it? Heroes are remembered, but legends never die. And I feel like that is definitely the case with Michael Jackson. Oh yeah, heroes get remembered, but legends never die. And funny enough, with Michael Jackson's death, it's sort of ironic that he wanted to have one more comeback tour before retiring for good. And by passing away, it became cool to like Michael Jackson again. Yeah. I mean, it's like, do you think Disney would have gone out of their way to bring back Captain EO had Michael Jackson been alive?
Probably not.
Yeah, so when Michael Jackson died, they brought back Captain EO as a tribute to Michael Jackson. There were so many people doing retrospectives. People were saying, hey, he may have been a weirdo, but he was a damn brilliant weirdo. It was the
most creative people are the most strange.
Very true. And it was sort of a thing where it's like his death allowed people to remember who he was, not how the media perceived him. And it solidified and immortalized the impact that he had on the music industry. And so I can think of nothing but positive things to say in terms of his legacy, and no amount of child abuse rehashed accusations can ever tear that down.
Yeah, especially in the case of Wade Robinson recently, because a few YouTube some of his arguments down where he goes and says he wasn't able to work or do dance choreography afterwards, yet there are multiple social media posts on Facebook and I think Twitter and Instagram where he's tagged in them in past May 2012 into 2015, 2016, where they all said they had a great time working with him and whatnot. I'm like, not able to do any dancing or do any work again. It's like, dude, you've already been caught lying there. You're not painting a good picture of yourself, just saying.
What was the last question you asked?
What was it? I'm hearing randomly complain about someone doing RE2 playthroughs from up here. Never mind. It's kind of distracting me a little bit. Yeah. What was where were you at the time that it happened? What do you think of him as an artist and a person? And do you think his music still holds up after all this time?
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've answered those questions to some degree, and yeah, his music definitely meant a lot to me growing up. And I do remember this was probably in the mid 2000s. One time for Christmas, I asked for a CD album of both Thriller and Bad. And my parents told me that as they were purchasing those CDs, the cashier kind of gave them a weird look about it. Because again, this is the mid 2000s, it's like people forgot, people didn't see Michael Jackson the way they saw him 10 years ago. It's or even 20 years ago. So when people are buying Michael Jackson music in that era, people are just like, wait, what? Why? But despite that, it's like we all pretty much everyone in my family respected Michael Jackson. We all were aware how odd of an individual he was, but we all knew exactly. We all pretty much knew why he was the way that he was, and we all believed that he was innocent, even during the second round of child molestation accusations. And his music was incredibly diverse. It was very unique, and I think will continue to stand out even as the years go by.
And it's like I said, at some stage, he's more than likely to get a biopic made. Hopefully done with a similar team that did Bohemian Rhapsody, because they represented Freddie and Queen very respectfully. And here's a funny thing that not too many people know. Michael Jackson actually told Queen to release Another One Bites the Dust. He said he loves it. It's like, oh, you guys have got to put that out there. He actually loved it, and Roger Taylor's like, really? I wasn't that quite enamored with it, but it's like, no, dude, that's actually one of your better songs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow! I just realized what happened to the actor who played adult Michael Jackson in the TV special.
Oh yeah, after it says I think after the whole thing, he just did more. It looked like he didn't do much after that. I think he stopped acting after 1995.
Oh, that's because he was probably Tragically, in 1993, Wiley was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. He died on December 20th in Los Angeles at the age of 24.
Oh, Jesus.
I feel like a dick because I looked at his IMDb page. I'm like, well, he hasn't done anything after this. That's probably why.
Because he wasn't around after this. A year after his death, his family established the Wiley Draper Foundation in celebration of his life. Its website stated that the WDF supports young artists through an annual memorial scholarship in Wiley's memory. Also raised awareness for bone marrow donation, especially in the African American community. Let's see. Shortly before that, he did receive positive reviews for his role as Michael and received an Emmy Award. He sadly didn't land many film or TV offers. He also had a small role in The Disappearance of Christina, but not much else. He was, however, hired by Michael himself to dance in the video for Remember the Time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was also the same music video that had Eddie Murphy in it as well.
Right, back when he thought he could sing.
No.
To be honest, I never listened much to his music outside of his collaborations with that one collaboration with Michael Jackson. It's just weird in this day and age to imagine him as a singer.
Yeah. Oh, Lids, Raiden, interesting thing to note. Our friend Steve, the Vince Wilton, actually met him once.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
It was at like a meet and greet back in 2001, where it's things like either. And Steve, if you're listening to this, do feel free to correct me because I may have forgotten some details. But it was like 50 to maybe like 100 people that just got to meet him. And I'm also going by what a former work colleague said to me. Apparently, when he got to Steve, he said, and I quote, "You have beautiful eyes." I don't know how I would have responded to that. I'd be like,
thank you.
Thank you. Because not the sort of response you'd expect from somebody you've grown up watching. It'd be like, okay, this is really awkward. I don't know whether to be thankful or be like weirded out.
I'll be like, I need an adult. I need an adult.
But Lydia, it's 2001. You are an adult.
No, I am not.
But no.
Lies.
And when he met up with Vince McMahon around, I think it was just around 2012, McMahon was a little bit surprised that Steve wasn't too shocked to meet him, but apparently he said, and I quote, "When you've met Michael Jackson, it doesn't really get any bigger than that." And McMahon's like, yeah, fair enough. But no, he can actually say that he's met Vince McMahon, Michael Jackson, and John Laurinaitis.
Oh,
who?
You're better off not knowing.
Yeah.
If you there are some people in wrestling, like, just when you think you've met like the lamest, bland, vanilla personalities, you meet Johnny Ace, and it's like, yep, you're the most bland. But that's more of a wrestling thing, and as well documented, wrestling, it's not Kaiju's thing.
Nah.
But you know, Michael was just something else. And the tracks that I remember the most when I think of Michael, I mean, obviously Thriller is up there, one of those ones you think of instantly. But then I think of numbers like Bad, Fly Away, which is a personal favorite of mine. PYT, I quite like that. But then there's Off the Wall, when even in the late 70s, early 80s, you're just getting a sample of the talent and the material that would follow into his solo work. And even then you can hear it's like, ooh. It's like at that time, in that era, there wasn't really that kind of sound. I mean, there may have been stuff that was somewhat similar, but the stuff he was coming up with was like, that was brand new, and some would argue groundbreaking. And then you hear and see Billie Jean, and that kind of set the groundwork for the standard that would follow on MTV. And unlike back then, MTV doesn't even have music videos on there. Seriously, guys, what the hell? Music videos, not reality stuff, nor social stuff that shouldn't be on there. We will go no further with that line of discussion.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
It sells, apparently.
Yeah, but I'm not buying from it. Raiden, what are the I don't know, 3 to 5 songs that instantly come to your mind when you think of Michael?
Me, it's Billie Jean, Beat It, Scream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thriller, and Black or White.
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
another one of his more iconic ones as well. Lid, same question.
I gotta say the same thing. Like definitely Thriller, Bad, Smooth Criminal. Come on, you gotta freaking remember that. Yeah. Also, it's like I have this thing. I don't know if anybody's heard this song. Dirty Diana. I kind of like that song.
That's an underrated classic.
Yes. And Scream. Scream's a good one. I'm trying to remember such. I can't remember the Free Willy song because I don't want us to be sad again. Nah. But yeah, he has pretty much a lot of those songs stick with me.
Okay. Kaiju, same question.
Of what?
What's the 3 to 5 songs that instantly come to mind about Michael Jackson with you?
Let's see, 3 to 5 songs. Easily Thriller, Billie Jean, Bad, Beat It, Smooth Criminal.
Yes.
Even to this day with Smooth Criminal, when he's doing that lean without being able to fall over, I'm like, dude, what the hell? Are you being held up by strings or something? And the suit that he had for that was just perfect. I mean, that's how you look if you want to look intimidating, not
and classy.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's just, even to this day, the way he throws the coin with such precision into the jukebox and then gets it going. It's just like, I know it's a movie. I know it doesn't make sense, but damn, it looks good doing it that way. Which, oddly enough, some of Michael's dance moves were actually incorporated into that one segment in the into the saloon bar in Back to the Future Part 3. Because if you recall, Mad Dog Tannen and his cronies come in and then tell him to dance, and you can actually see, well, Michael J. Fox trying to do some, some moonwalking, but then you have like a dancer filmed from the waist down just doing like all those moves. I'm like, okay. That's something that, I wasn't expecting, but it's all good. On the subject of Back to the Future, do you realize that by this November is the 30th anniversary of Part 2?
Of what?
Of Back to the Future?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this November will be the 30th anniversary of Part 2, because if memory serves correctly, it was November 28, 1989, when Part 2 first came out in cinemas. Which it had been 4 years since the original, and because Claudia Wells was not able to do the follow-up, they had to reshoot the ending of Part 1 just so that it would sync up properly. And here's the thing with Elizabeth Shue. She looks so much like Claudia Wells. You couldn't tell the difference too much unless you had a really proper trained eye for it. But to this day, I think that movie holds up incredibly well. And, Kaiju, as you and I both discussed 4 years ago this December, when we covered not only the 30th anniversary of the first movie, but obviously the 26th anniversary of the second, because October 21, 2015 was quite an occasion that year. There were a lot of things that were done in Part 2. They actually became a reality, although we're still glad to this day that, flying cars aren't a thing, given the amount of dangerous drivers that are around to this day. Well, we said something. We said something to the effect of it'd be like Star Wars on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, people already have enough trouble trying to move forward. Can you imagine them trying to move forward, up and down as well?
Yeah, be like, stay on target.
Everybody's going into light speed. I'm like, what the hell?
And it's just like things like seeing the first ever working Nike power laces that were unveiled on the Jimmy Kimmel show. That that was an idea that came from Part 2 by going into their version of 2015. But to see that become a reality that was actually unveiled to the world, and the fact that Michael J. Fox actually got to try that out, which he put up on his Twitter page. I think even you said, Kaiju, that is a Marty McFly moment where it's like, wow, this is insane.
Yeah, totally.
And the fact that Christopher Lloyd still plays the Doc to this day, when you consider in the build-up to the first movie, he kind of dismissed it because he didn't really think this was the sort of thing that actors do. But you could sort of see after the first movie, he became really endeared and protective of the character to where he's still playing the Doc in commercials and the anniversary games from Telltale Games. This is something that he takes immensely seriously. The things that I'm pleased that they didn't make a thing from Part 2, I'm kind of glad the whole two ties thing, whilst wearing them at the same time, I'm kind of glad that never took off, because they're like, what? Like, that didn't make sense to me back then. I'm like, it's not going to make sense now. And the one that I'm like, oh, where's my self-drying jacket? Damn it, I still want that. Or although they did get another one correct, people being distracted at the dinner table due to digital devices. They did predict that.
Yep.
And FaceTime, they predicted that, although you could also argue Star Trek predicted that as well. Because they were predicting that even in the 60s, along with Thunderbirds, Stingray, Knight Rider did that as well.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Exactly.
Destroy all monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good thing that they don't fire you via fax anymore.
Oh yeah, unless you live in Japan, because they still use fax.
Oh,
they're that clingy onto the old methods.
I do like in the Toyota commercials where he goes, "Can you believe we're still using fax machines?" Well, I got a fax machine. Yeah, who do you fax? I fax my agent. Okay, I'll fax you then.
That's cute.
But, the other thing that became a reality, Mr. Fusion essentially became a thing with the Toyota Mirai, because that actually does run on electricity that was converted from garbage. So that technically became a thing. And I do find it appropriate that they named that Toyota model Mirai, because even Kaiju will know this. Translated, Mirai means future.
Yep.
So that was clever on Toyota's part, which is also a nice connection to, well, all three movies, because they had that Toyota pickup truck that Marty had been wanting since the beginning of the first movie. Which I thought, okay, that's nice continuity. But part two, although it's a good movie, I still have part one as one of the Holy Trinity go-tos for me, simply because there wasn't really a time travel movie like that. Because with part two, you have already going into it, you've got some idea of what to expect, having witnessed what happened 4 years before it. But part two is nothing but, fun, exciting, and there's a couple of moments that kind of catch you off guard, thinking, "Oh, that was unexpected." But Bob and Bob are, they just pulled their A game once more with that movie. And as you highlighted, Kaiju, they kind of explored the dangers of going through with time travel, especially when old Biff got his hands on the DeLorean and the sports almanac, and you just see like the monster that he's fully capable of when he's actually got money and power.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those movies that it's never going to get old. I think some of the visual effects don't really hold up too well, particularly when you see the DeLorean taking off for the first time outside of the McFly house. But because it's so brief, you don't really take too much notice of it, because you're more invested in the story and the characters. And it was a happy future that people went to in 2015. But the only sort of problems I have with the sequels, you see certain repetition and beats being repeated, like Marty running out of an establishment and finding a way to escape a version of the Tannen family of that time. And then the whole chicken thing that just sort of comes out of nowhere. I mean,
yeah, it was essentially done to give Marty some sort of last minute overarching character arc, because he had already been through a character arc for this first film. So it's like, where do you take his character from there?
Yeah. Then the other thing was how they cleverly got around not showing George McFly on camera, because obviously Crispin Glover had been dismissed from doing the sequel, and how they're actually able to work around the events of the first movie, which, that's clever writing and even clever camera work in its own regard, especially that one shot where you see 1985 Doc Brown interacting with 1955 Doc Brown, which...
Oh, yeah.
even though they say that camera technique by today's standards is outdated, you look at it now, it's like, what are you talking about? It looks seamless. But what do I know? And it's just the way that it's set up the third movie at the end. And even then, they were sort of, and this is one of the things I remember you saying when they did the first movie. They have like all this throwaway information, and yet it all comes back up much later in the movie when you're not expecting it. So like when you're seeing Biff watch that Western of Clint Eastwood having the bulletproof vest from I think it was either A Fistful of Dollars or Dirty Harry, and then
I think it was Fistful of Dollars.
And then you see Marty using it in part 3, and then Doc is talking about not being able to visit the old West and discover the greater mystery of the universe, women, which I thought, ooh, don't say that. It's like, don't say that in 2015, dude. That'll get you some dirty looks. But part 2, while not being as strong as the original, it did put a lot of ideas into people's heads with regards to technological advances. The only thing that they didn't predict was the internet. That was the
oh yeah, nobody could.
And the one prediction, even though this happened a year off their prediction, was the Cubs winning the World Series. And your words, and I quote Kaiju, after Firebird had said, after the Cubs got buzzsawed by the Mets, the one time any moviegoer gave a damn about sports.
Damn.
Because not even I watch Major League Baseball, and I'm like, Cubs are in the semis. Like, please, 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 please. Even on that segment with Jimmy Kimmel where, Chris Lloyd in character goes, are the Cubs in the playoffs? And it's like, yeah. They're like, yes, just that little bit further. And, the fact that on October 21, 4 years ago, you couldn't get away from Back to the Future. Even like, I think it's the Florida Marlins. They're a basketball team. There's like, we are here tonight because of this movie. And I'm like, oh, okay. You're actually giving props to a movie that was predicting something all those years ago. I got nothing but, fond regards for that movie. Again, the first movie is my go-to for time travel, but part 2, it's still a decent movie despite some of the minor flaws that it has. But other than that, I've got nothing but good things to say about it. Lids, part 2. Did you see it first in the cinema, or is it, like me and the rest of everyone else, you saw it for the first time on TV and it's like, ooh, DVD, please? And, do you think it holds up after all this time? And, is it going to be one of those movies that, 20 to 40 years down the line, people are still going to look at this and go, oh, this is awesome?
Oh, absolutely. I actually did. I didn't see it in the cinema. I'm not that old. but yeah, I saw it in like on VHS, movie night with all our family, where it's like, it's actually one of the movies that actually had an effect on me, because when Marty goes back in time and then he knows he fucked up and sees the town basically look like low budget Las Vegas. I'm like, oh, no, Marty. And the whole finding out that his dad is dead, I'm like, oh no, you did not just do, nope. But it, like, again, it's one of those movies that had a deep impact on like me emotionally, and it still holds up. He's like, even though there are some dated references, but it's like the movie's timeless.
Yeah.
You can't think of like time travel movies without thinking Back to the Future.
When you say dated references, what do you mean with regards to that?
Well, the stuff like back in not in, like in the 80s when you find like there's I don't know if I want to say dated. I want to say like some things that didn't come true or didn't happen, like the use of a fax machine. I'm like,
yeah,
is that anymore?
Or
I mean,
window
for some reason.
window TVs or
yeah.
what do you call a hydrated pizza?
Yeah.
That's a microwave pizza now. Except it doesn't look like that. I kind of want that. It's like, can we do that? Can we find a way to make a pizza look like that coming out of the oven?
Although, what family gets like half pepperoni, half pepper?
That is weird. Why?
Because movie.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much.
Obviously, we still don't have levitation devices to hang us upside down, or to self-walk our dogs, or to fly our cars and hoverboards.
No.
No, at this point, we're not Back to the Future. We're going to turn into Wall-E, and that's going to be sad.
Yeah. Ugh. That's a more realistic future.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's all just going to become a bunch of lazy, bloated fat asses.
Yeah, sadly.
Must not do a Cartman joke. Must not do a Cartman joke.
No, don't. No.
Don't do it.
I'll resist it for this week. Although, could you imagine that? Imagine if Oni managed to get the DeLorean.
Oh no! Don't give him ideas. No, if that's the case, he would try to get me to meet him earlier. Like put himself in my high school or something. I don't know.
Instead, it would be like either Oni to the future or back to Oni.
You know, it's like, hey, Lydia, that's just the power of love.
Raiden, same question to you. Was part 2 something that you saw in the theater, or like so many people, did you see it on TV or VHS, DVD, and do you think it still holds up?
I think I saw it on TV. Honestly, I didn't think much of it, but looking back at it, I feel like I enjoyed the premise of it per se, especially like it's like an open window of like what will the future be like or whatnot. It looks far fetched, but some of it says, "Oh, okay, I guess Back to the Future predicted that shit." But yeah, I think in a way it still holds up, especially how like you never know what the future holds or what not. So I say, I guess it was pretty good for that time period.
Alrighty.
Yeah, if anything, those kind of movies get made into lists on freaking internet forums.
It's here's like, 10 things you don't know about Back to the Future 2. You won't believe number 5.
It's like, how many times Back to the Future got something correct? I'm like, okay.
Here now on BuzzFeed, here's 7 things the 7 things that Back to the Future got wrong.
What?
Yeah, I hate those articles so much.
Well, same questions to you, Kaiju. I mean, was this something that you saw on TV first? And I know you had because you pretty much went into detail when we did end of year 4 years ago. Do you pretty much stand by that review, or do you feel like over the last 4 years that there's more you can add to it.
No, I pretty much feel the same way I did 4 years ago when we made that little tribute to Back to the Futures 1 and 2. I feel like it's a very adequate sequel. It's probably not as strong as the first movie, but the first movie was such a tough act to follow. It's kind of impossible to even do that without going in a different direction. But the characters are consistent for the most part. The universe is still very fun. The time travel and a lot of the futuristic ideas presented were fun. And it was overall, and the ending was pretty clever in how it ties in literally with the first movie, all by having the characters revisit the first movie again. And, you know, the amount of body work and like body double work and CG doubles was amazing for its time. And this is like years before like the Nutty Professor blew us all the way with the Clumps dinner scene.
Oh,
you know, before we got to see Marty McFly and Michael J. Fox in drag before Eddie Murphy ever got to do that.
I was like looking at the Fine Brothers teens react to Back to the Future Part 2 trailer, and you just see like one of them where it focuses on Michael J. Fox as his daughters, and Michael J. Fox. Wait, did that actually happen?
I also like they did the whole. I think it was like not teens, but it was like people react to 2015, and they show the part where it's like today on October 30, whatever the date it was, October 25th, 2015, and people were like, "Holy shit, that's today!"
Yeah. It's like I say, you couldn't get away from it. That the funniest one, I may have mentioned this in the 2015 panel. At the, I think it was either up in Edinburgh or London King's Cross. It said on the electronic billboard, said, "On this day, Marty and the Doc made history. There is no hoverboarding or time travel permitted at this concourse." And I'm like, okay, I like that. That's nice. Or these several one commercial that came up at this autonomous concept that Volkswagen were working on. It just said, and I quote, "Thanks for inspiring us, Doc." Because there were a couple of autonomous vehicles used in Part 2. I mean, yeah, the designs are very 80s, but it did put ideas in people's heads back then. And it's like I said, it was a future that, all right, not very realistic, but it was one where they just had fun with it.
80s nostalgia, that came true.
Yep.
With Cafe 80s. Pretty much like that's exactly what we think of when we think of the 80s.
And Kung Fury, because you said that's pretty much Cafe 80s in film form.
Absolutely. Damn right.
That sequel I'm going to be interested in seeing, because apparently they got Michael Fassbender to work with it as well. So I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm intrigued. But
I'm hoping for the best for that project.
Yeah. Well, apparently David Sandberg is still being very, very close with it and still being very hands-on, which is only right because it is his baby at the end of the day. So we'll see how that one comes to pass. But again, I got, I think all of us have got nothing but fond nostalgia for Part 2. As we've said, it's not the strongest sequel. I did feel like with Part 3, they kind of redeemed themselves a little bit, even though it didn't take the same amount of money as Part 2, because I think Part 3 is the least profitable of the trilogy, but it concluded the story in a nice way. Mind you, on the subject of another 30th anniversary, Ghostbusters 2 turns 30 this year.
Wow.
That's another movie where although it's not as strong as the 1984 original, I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets. I think it was a decent, consistent sequel. I mean, it's like, and as I've said before, when you do the first movie of anything, you don't know what to expect. But when a sequel comes along, you've got an idea of what you're going to be working with. And I thought the writing and the humor and the camaraderie between the actors was just as good as before. I'm not sure about Vigo. I think he had a couple of good moments, although Sean Retro is saying still better than Ghostbusters 2016. What Ghostbusters 2016?
Doesn't exist.
Isn't it called Ghostbusters Answer the Call now?
Well, I sure as hell wasn't calling.
Nor did you answer that phone.
Nope. Nor did Raiden, because he was pretty much, projecting up into the sky. Paul Feig, here's this L. Oh, I was expecting a response from him. Never mind. It was a different, well, when I say a different premise with the second movie, I mean, still going after a plot MacGuffin that's, trying to take over the world, the old, as William Hanna's character said in The Mummy Returns, oh, right, the old end of the world ploy. I thought it was a decent follow-up and a decent evolution of the equipment, because you have the proton packs, but you've also got the positive slime packs, which allowed Lady Liberty to take a walk down Manhattan, which that was impressive for 1989. Mm-hmm. That, and I noticed with the soundtrack, this is where you notice the shift and how much more range the soundtrack had. But the first one, Ray Parker Jr. is front and center. He's still involved with the second movie, but you notice in 1980 with the soundtrack for 89, there's much more of a rap and hip hop R&B influence coming, especially when you got Run DMC doing their own version of the Ghostbusters theme, which I quite enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ray Parker's is still the original go-to to enjoy, but Run DMC's was actually good. That and Bobby Brown giving his towards the end, which is actually one of his better records. That's my personal point of it. And it's an interesting way they still had Dana Barrett involved in the story, even though she's not the target of of the ghost attention per se. Her son is the target, but she's not the one, being targeted by Gozer. Long story short, I enjoyed it for what it is. I don't think it's deserving of all the hatred it gets, because I thought it was a decent follow-up to the original. It would have been nice if we had gotten a third movie much sooner, but it is what it is, and the actors turn in a great performance. And I thought it was actually Harold Ramis's better performance as Egon. Not to say that the 84 performance was terrible, but I just felt like they allowed him to have a little bit more humor with the second movie, even though he's not purposely trying to be funny. It's that sort of humor where you're playing it straight, but you're getting laughs from it as a result. So, yeah, that's pretty much my stance on it. What do you remember first seeing with Ghostbusters 2 Kaiju? Do you think it still holds up?
I think some aspects of it still hold up, like the chemistry between the main actors, the special effects, the humor. I just feel like the plot overall is a bit more on the more of the same, with a huge contrivance for trying to get the Ghostbusters back at the bottom, just so they can do another rehash the whole "we started from the bottom, now we're here" kind of story arc. like a fallen heroes get a chance to redeem themselves, even though they were never really fallen to begin with, but it's very contrived as to how they are now fallen all of a sudden. But other than that, it's like I don't really watch Ghostbusters 2 for its plot or for its character development. I mostly watch it mainly just to see the more of the same camaraderie between Dan Aykroyd and his crew.
All right. That's good input. I'll get to your link in a little bit, Steve. I just need to get round the table as I often do. Lids, same question to you. Where did you first see Ghostbusters 2? Do you agree or disagree that it's not as strong as the original? Do you think it still holds up?
Yeah, I actually first saw Ghostbusters 2 like on cable, and it's again, yeah, not my favorite Ghostbusters movie because that goes to the original, and yeah, the less said about that Paul Feig garbage, the better. But yeah, it's like I agree. It's not the best movie, but it's fine. Like it's a fine movie. It's fun because it's like again, like Kaiju said, you get to see these characters interact with one another and their rapport with one another, and that I do enjoy. Does I think it holds up? Yes and no, but that's just my personal opinion.
All right. Raiden, same questions to you.
Well, unlike Big Busters, it's actually a Ghostbusters movie. I'll just say that. You know.
Amen.
It still has its problems and whatnot, but like Lid says, as long as those characters still interact with each other and they don't get stale, I mean, I feel like it's still enjoyable. I don't know if it holds up today, but I felt like, with all the crazy stuff that happens within that movie, it's still the Ghostbusters that you know and love. You still got Spank, you still got Egon, you still got Bankman, you still got Ray, you still got Winston, you still got. I keep forgetting about Rick Moranis' character. What was his name again?
Louis Tully.
Louis Tully. Yeah. As long as you got those characters, and as long as you still had that charm of its Ghostbusters, I feel like you're still gonna enjoy yourself regardless. And that Bobby Brown song still fun to listen to this day.
Yep.
Yeah, I really hope they manage to get Rick Moranis back for this movie.
I gotta admit, you talk about soundtracks because we got watching Space Jam last night for the first time in
nice.
Lord knows how well.
What I'm curious as to know what motivated you two to watch Space Jam.
We got done watching doing the Transformers marathon, the Turtles marathon, and the Superman marathon. And I don't know if Random has published his 3 panels or less on a movie series with Superman 4. Superman just takes one look at Nuclear Man, just goes, I quit.
Yep, yeah.
Because Superman 4 has not aged well. It's one of those, I love it for Chris. I love it for Margot with the limited scene she's in. But Nuclear Man and the green screen, I appreciate it was 1987 when it came out, but you could tell the budget was really cheap with that movie. I mean, when you look at the green screen for like the first and second movies, which still hold up quite well to this day, but you look at number 4, it just didn't care. And it's one of the very few times I will agree with Nostalgia Critic that movie was terrible.
I think what happened was they relied on Canon Pictures, and Canon actually, I think they funneled some of the money away from that production to fund some of their own other movies.
Because notice whenever you see the green screen of Superman flying to the screen. It's pretty much copy and paste into other shots of the movie. I'm like, this looks nasty.
What's even worse is how, even sadder is how Christopher Reeves came back to on the promise that he would direct the Superman 5 if that ever got made.
And if you look at the opening segment for Superman 3, even the credits doesn't care. It's just there.
Oh, God.
The only thing I can say that was decent for number 3 was his performance playing as the darker side of Superman was beautifully done, especially when there's that scene where it's basically a physical manifestation of his fight from within to regain control of his morality, where you have him as Clark and then you have him as Superman with a slightly darkened cape and 5 o'clock shadow on him. I thought, okay, this movie is bad, but at least he's selling it. But, he was Superman as far as a lot of us were concerned. But like I say, we just wanted to watch a movie. And also I'd had a bit of a long day at work yesterday. I'm not going to get too much into the controversies.
What controversy?
I'm going to get to that. I'm not going to get into the controversies of what has happened with R. Kelly, but I will say, hearing when I hear, I believe I can fly. Although here's the thing. This is where I'm going to be subjective and objective. Subjectively, it's still a great song. I won't discredit the song for that, but hearing what we're hearing based on allegations, I feel to it now. Because it's one of those questions, can you separate the art from the artist? I mean,
I want you to try doing that with the song Trapped in the Closet.
Oh, God.
My mind was telling me no, but my body...
That's a bump and grind, but
Oh, sorry, wrong one.
I'm gonna try to the closet. I don't want to go in the
closet. You got that from South Park, right?
Oh, damn it! You read my mind.
It's in the closet.
And then I pull out my gun.
One, I'm gonna shoot this door. Two, I'm gonna cap some bitch.
and of course where I thought Matt and Trey were going too far, but then again it's Matt and Trey. They never know the meaning of going too far. They had, I think, was it having John Travolta join them in there? I'm like, oh come on, man!
Oh my god, it's so roomy in here.
I find it funny because before we get to that, wasn't that the episode that made Isaac Hayes quit South Park?
Yeah, that was a Scientology episode.
Yeah, of course.
The Scientology episode.
Although from what I hear, according to Isaac Hayes' son, he didn't really leave on his own accord, but rather the Church of Scientology kind of forced him away from South Park.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because I feel like Isaac Hayes had the time of his life playing that character, and really didn't care about the whole racism thing, that especially in the episode Chef Goes Nanners.
Oh God, yeah.
Because I feel like he was just having the time of doing it. And I know shit outside forces were the blame of his departure of the character.
I think my most favored amusing memories of the character is the episode Chef Aid and the episode where they have Kathy Lee Gifford visiting South Park, and he's just doing this piece, and you hear Mrs. Mayor go what? What are you singing to her? And it's trying to drag him off the stage. No. We want a good impression. We don't want this. But yeah, like I say, it's a bit awkward listening to that R. Kelly track, and thankfully, it's not plastered throughout the movie. I think, in all honesty, I think the song that identified more with the movie was Seal's "Fly Like an Eagle," because we all think of Michael Jordan as they announce him as his royal airness, because and like I say, the only reason we put that one is we were done doing the marathons and what have you. The thing I notice in particular, and this is where having the train die for chroma keying after doing a bunch of amateur chroma keying myself in the last 5 years, the trained eye is able to tell what is superimposed and what is actually there. And some bits and pieces, chroma key wise, it hasn't aged too well, but that was the best tech that they had to work with at the time in '96. But I still enjoy that movie for what it is, despite what some people may say. I won't go mentioning said person's name because Raiden knows who I mean. Yes. But no, the only reason we watched that is because it was actually him who picked it out. I was just like, I was thinking of stuff to watch because I wanted to actually watch Short Circuit 2. But apparently the scene where Johnny Five got beat up had a little bit of an effect on him, one of his characters later in life, because apparently he was inspired by that scene with what they did to Johnny Five for his character Stella.
Or you mean Daisy?
No, Daisy. No. Oh, that's my bad. But yeah, even for, because I think Short Circuit 2 was late 80s, early 90s. They went to places with that scene where you see Oscar's goons tearing him apart, with the Hacketts and what have you, and you're like, hey, come on, it's Johnny Five, leave him alone, he's not doing you any harm. Especially when you see him in the alleyway when Fred finds him and there's wires all hanging out of him and part of his caterpillar tracks are not synced up and he's not able to talk, and he looks like he's got, pardon my language, he's had the shit kicked out of him. But for a fun family 80s movie, it does its job well. And Lids, they're remaking it.
Short Circuit? Why?
Yeah, what?
They're remaking it.
Oh God, with their luck, it's probably gonna be some freaking remake where it's all dark and gritty and it's like not fun.
They're gonna turn Johnny Five and gonna make him look like the Ed 209.
Yes.
Actually, from what I understand, they got inspired by the Bumblebee Sam Witwicky dynamic.
Oh my God!
No.
The only good thing is they're trying to tempt the original voice actor to come back.
What's he doing now, though?
I have no idea. But
if you think that's crazy, did you guys hear recently that LeBron James's Space Jam 2 is apparently officially a thing now?
I've heard.
Yep.
And like after how many years of rumors has that been going on, only for it to finally get confirmed?
So wait, you say Space Jam 2, because from what I heard, they were actually going to do a straight up reboot.
Not really sure what they're thinking, but they're making another Space Jam.
I mean, I'm kind of excited. Okay. For many who don't know, Space Jam is one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't care if it gets old or not, whatever. But even I had to admit, Michael Jordan wasn't the the best actor there. So maybe, just maybe, LeBron could do a little better, because we all seen what he can do commercial wise and all that. He can be pretty good. My thing is who's going to voice Looney Tunes characters. I mean, I know there's going to be a couple. I think. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully the plot wise is going to be good. Because, I mean, as nonsensical it was with the first one, it made sense because it told you everything you needed to know. Like, Moron Mountain is kind of crafty, so make the main antagonist Whackhammer saw Looney Tunes, and I'm like, oh, I got an idea. Let's get these guys to make things funny. And it was by force. So what Ludius thought, like, okay, how are we going to beat these guys? By basketball. But they didn't get the concept that the little guy stole the NBA talent. Yeah. So they go for the next best thing in Michael Jordan. So the plot was there. It didn't make you feel stupid. It told you everything you needed to know. So it'll be interesting what the second one is going to be like. I'm still holding out on Michael B. Jordan and anime characters for a future one. I want to see that very badly.
Also, I think as and when this thing gets made, I think it would be appropriate for Michael Jordan to either have a very quick cameo or just have like a quick walk-on part, as if to say a wink to the audience, we remember the original.
I possibly see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because parts of that movie was actually kind of are imitating life, because where you see him with that press conference at the start, he said, the good thing that comes out of it is that my father got to see me in my last basketball game, which means a lot, because in real life, as to my understanding, his father died not too long after that.
Yeah, I remember reading about that a couple years back.
Because I think he actually did go to play baseball for a while, but then came back to basketball. It's like, let's see if I can still do this. And did he come out of retirement just the once or twice?
Shit, I think like once or twice, maybe.
Because I think now he's indefinitely retired now.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because I think the last team he played with was it the Washington Redskins? Is that what they're called?
Wizards.
Sorry, yep. Washington Wizards. Excuse me. Sorry, my bad. I was not informed.
You're good, man. You're good, bro. You're good. Unlike other people, I'm not ultra crazy and calling people out like, it's the Wizards, man. The Wizards.
To be fair, they used to be called the Washington Bullets, but
years.
Interesting to see what they do with that sequel. Another one that's turning 30 this year as well. Good Lord. Batman.
Ooh.
For me, whenever I think of the most definitive live-action Batman movie, 1989 is my go-to. That's not to say that anything that Christian Bale and Chris Nolan has done is not to be looked at. That's not the case whatsoever. I think what they've done definitely gives Batman, a lot of evolution with regards to how he's been handled as a movie character. But 89, there is something about the way that movie was done. It was just very subtle. And Michael Keaton, even though at first glance you think, how can he be Batman? Then you see the movie and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a perfect fit. Why did we not do this before? And it's just, and particularly how he did his lines. as Batman. It was just so subtle rather than, oh, Batman, I'm Batman. You know, it's just done, low, subtle, in and out, done. And the Burton Mobile. Need I say anything further? I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the Tumbler, but it's not the Burton Mobile. No, it is not. And then obviously, either that one was coincidentally the inspiration for the animated series Batmobile. I mean, if it wasn't, it was somewhat similar, but there's something about that car, you know, because you look at it and you think, oh, that's Batman. Easy. And, you know, it had a decent supporting cast. Michael Gough, I mean, I love Michael Caine as Alfred, don't get me wrong. But Michael Gough just had this very sort of reserved, sarcastic cynicism about him. And Jack Nicholson. Lids, I know you love Heath Ledger as Joker, but to me, there's only...
no, I'm not going to mince words. Jack was a great Joker. Just love Heath just a bit more.
To me, Jack, he just offered that little extra X factor that, to me, Heath just wasn't giving. I mean, that's my opinion. You know,
that's fair.
Many people
get it.
Many people will differ, and you know that's all fine. But there's just something about Nicholson's swagger and charisma as the Joker. It's like mind of a maker makes a Mookie. At the time, I'm like, what? It's like, that sounds cool what you said, but like, what?
Do you dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? It's like, no, I'm scared now.
Or the one exchange between him and Kim Basinger, he goes, is like Beauty and Beast. Anyone ever calls you Beast, I'll personally kill. I'm like, oh, come on, man, really? And, you know, Kim Basinger in a superhero flick, because I think her earliest movie role was actually in a remake of James Bond's Thunderball, because she was in Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery, which was, I think, 6 years before Batman 89, but as Vicky Vale, perfect. And it's like I said in my Batman versus Batman review, it's like she was gorgeous then, still is. But 89, nothing but fond memories. I think it still holds up incredibly well. And it was at a time where the superhero movie genre was hinging on how well Batman 89 was going to unfold, because as documented in, you know, over the last few weeks with Random's 3 panels or less, after the Superman Christopher Reeve series was done, they're all looking to Bats thinking, dude, we need you, seriously. And you look at the style that Tim Burton did. I mean, with Tim Burton, you know it's going to be ultra crazy, creepy out there. But after so many years of the campy Adam West tone, which, you know, it was great for the time it was in. But after like the mid to late 80s with things like Batman Year One and The Dark Knight Returns, it had to go in a much darker direction. And personally, for me, I think that was the template of how to do Batman from that point on, make him this very gothic, mysterious creature. That's particularly in the chemical factory, where you see him ascending above the smoke screen. I'm like, ooh, you know, it's that very theatrical feel to him. I know Christian Bale tried, but he's not Michael, my opinion. He had the physical build for it, but that was also the other thing that made Michael so such a good choice as Batman is because he is the last person you would suspect as Batman. Because you look at him, he's, there are some people when they're disguised as a regular person, not be a superhero, you can tell a mile away. But you look at Keaton, it's just like he is so uncomfortable being Bruce Wayne. Whereas he puts on the cape and cowl, like, okay, I can sit down peacefully and read the paper now. And the way that they had the Batcave designed, even from a late 80s production, it fit the mold. Even to where the Batmobile's on that turntable down a very steep drop afterwards, like, no, this is a perfect fit. And even down to the score. I know we've narked on Danny Elfman for his lack of range, but for Batman, perfect. Because it fits what it needs. Batman Returns, I like Batman to be dark, but not that dark. That movie went to places. But yeah, I've been on a tangent long enough. Lids, your first memories of the 89 Batman, does it still hold up? And do you feel like Warner Brothers kind of deviated a little bit from it, and should they possibly go back to this template?
Well, I've had like a fondness for the Burton films. Not saying I hate the rendition of the Joker. I like Jack as the Joker. Just again, I like Heath a little bit more because he was more gritty, but I see the appeal of Jack Nicholson being the Joker. And Keaton, hands down, perfect Batman. I'm sorry. And I like Christian Bale fine, but Keaton's the perfect Batman for me. And again, my brain's flinging out. It's like, does it hold up? Absolutely. It's like the way the film is shot, it doesn't feel dated. It feels like it has a timeless feel because it could take place at any point in time. Especially with how Gotham is always a very morose, depressing side of the DC universe. But it's like, I can see that. And just it does hold up, and I actually like. And Warner Brothers, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. They acknowledge the fact that these are good films. Just don't throw them away and just go with dark, brooding. I am sad. No. Like, have a balance, because I get Batman's a tragic character, but give him a little bit of heart, because otherwise we can't sympathize with him. We're just going to be like, he's depressed. Let's just walk away. Yeah. But yeah, the film does hold up as it's for being 20 years old. And did you say 20? You said 20, right?
30.
I'm trying to remember. 30. There we go. 30. So yeah, it still holds up 30 years later. So that's the mark of a good director. And it also spawned one of my favorite sequels, Batman Returns. I get that some people think that's like, oh, it's not a Batman movie. Yeah, true. It's a Tim Burton movie, but it's still a good movie.
It's like, and your problem is?
Exactly. Like, your opinion is wrong. Go now. You're entitled to your opinion. But yeah, it's just I do have like a bit of a bias towards Batman Returns, but it is what it is.
Raiden, same question to you.
Well, I believe that is definitely one of the most quintessential superhero films of that time, and looking back, I definitely agree with Liz on this one. I feel like Michael Keaton definitely represented the myth of Batman itself. Like the thing how he portrayed both Bruce Wayne and Batman was pretty cool. It wasn't overdone. I mean, the way he was portrayed was very complex. A tortured soul. I mean, like how Batman is. Like, the whole reason why he became Batman because of a tragic experience he went through as a kid. So I say everyone did their part really well. Like Kim Basinger as Vicky Vale was just spot on. Jack Nicholson the Joker was just very, enigmatic, proud of what he does. Take pride on what he represents, and I feel like that film was just a ways just to show like, hey, superhero movies are alive and well, and no matter how much bad we can do with it, at least you can still remember it in a fun outlook. So I say still a classic to this day.
Last but never least, Kaiju, same question. Hey man.
Of which one?
Batman 89.
Let's see. And your main question was whether or not this can ever be done again?
The question is, 30 years on, what were your first impressions of seeing it? Does it still hold up to this day? And do you think it's a template that Warner Brothers should revisit again in the future if they ever decide to reboot Batman for the umpteenth time?
Let's see. I pretty much came into Batman 89 really late into the game because I ended up growing up with more of the Schumacher films more than the Burton films. So for me, like anything that was pre-Dark Knight was always involved with the multicolored, neon-infused stylings of the Schumacher films. And so I ended up seeing 89 and Returns in high school, and I immediately fell in love with the whole dark fantasy noir aesthetic. Almost like the perfect blend of like gothic fantasy and almost like over the top superhero melodrama. It's a very sort of heightened reality. It's not so much like it's not meant to really take place in any sort of real world aesthetic. It's meant to live in its own fantasy world, which you don't really see a whole lot in today's superhero movies.
No.
Everything is trying to be in the real world. No one ever tries to go for a heightened reality. I mean, we had stuff like Sin City. I would probably say Dick Tracy. If it can even be considered a superhero movie, barely. What was it called? Dark City.
Oh yeah.
Even in some cases, the Matrix could be considered a superhero movie because Keanu Reeves flies at the end.
Even though half of the time knowing about the Matrix itself is confusing, and all you care about is the fight scenes.
Let's see. And of course, some of the older pulp heroes that turned into movies shortly after Batman 89. But nowadays, you don't really get any sort. Okay, maybe you get a period piece with Captain America: The First Avenger, but outside of that, outside of the occasional period piece, you don't really get any sort of like heightened reality or any sort of fantasy reality. It's only meant to imitate what's real about this. It would be cool if Warner Brothers were to try to attempt to build some sort of fantasy atmosphere with Gotham City in any future Batman movie, as opposed to just making it Chicago, but not really, or it's New York, but not really. But yeah, it's like I still think Batman 89 still holds up to this day just because it looks so unique, and its interpretations of Batman and Joker are also just as unique. You don't really get the sort of like suave, sophisticated Bruce Wayne. He's more like this weird, eccentric lone wolf kind of person who's very awkward and strange for whatever reason. Like he's totally out of his element and only feels comfortable when he is Batman. You got Jack Nicholson, who is like a complete and total narcissist who wants everybody's eyes to be focused solely on him, and it's very both of them are very unique takes on Batman. I know there are people who hate these interpretations of Batman and Joker. Some people don't like how Joker is Batman's parents' killer. People don't like how Batman kills in this movie. People don't like how Batman is weird, is like, some people don't like how strangely psychotic or aloof this version of Batman is. And, I get it. It's not your particular your favorite take on Batman, but for me, it's like, it still feels like Batman while being its own thing. And even despite the fact that it's 30 years old, I still feel like it is a unique beast unto itself, and it is its own thing that can never really be replicated, and nor should it be replicated. Though I do think that perhaps people can take some can take some notes from it in terms of adapting something and putting a new spin on things. Also letting directors do what they want to fucking do with the character. As opposed
We're looking
to
at you, Warner Brothers.
Yes, as opposed to switching directors halfway through or giving the movie to a completely different editing team to make it like the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just some fair comments there. It's like I say, the cast for that, you couldn't really have gone any better. Although I did feel like Pat Hingel got featured a little bit more with the passing sequels, but in '89, you kind of feel like Gordon's just in the background,
Yeah. Because he's an integral part of Batman's life. So just seeing him just like a side character, it was kind of a little sad though.
Yeah. Stephen Walker says, I actually had Batman Return. Most people did back in the day. Oh, he wants us to watch one video he's got, which is of Lego Ghostbusters. So I'll just pop that in Discord a second. Go. We'll probably do 2 more topics and then we'll call it a day for this week.
All right.
Gotta say, we're definitely spot on with the topics and just knocking it out the park aside from tangents.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah,
I do enough tangents on my own without any assistance, but that's a story for another time. All right, we'll just wait till everybody's at 0.
All right, I'm at 0.
Let's do this. Turn this on. Okay, I is ready.
In 3, 2, 1, let's get bustin'. Play. Oh, nice.
Ghost of Hated Christian. What?
Oh.
What? Oh, that's one way to get around a freaking copyright strike. What? This is good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on! You should not be worthy of lifting that.
Nice going,
Oh
Walter.
my god.
Oh. Oh my.
Ah! Oh, come on! Whoa, okay. I mean, they couldn't actually use the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, not this guy. Something looks a little off about that guy. Oh, hi. Uh, whoa!
Notorious, what the hell?
Deadpool! What the hell? He did call everybody. What is happening? No, don't eat Homer.
That's okay. He's been dead since the 90s.
Oh.
I see what you did there.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
But oh, well, there he is. He's fine now. Okay, that was good.
Aww.
Hold up, this was help made by kids?
Wow. No, I'm pretty sure like it was an adult who used kids to maybe his own family to help him.
Oh, that's cute. Okay.
I've actually got one video up next. It's actually by someone who's asked me to do reactions to some of his videos before. You're either gonna like what he does, or you're not gonna like him. Make of that.
Is that a challenge?
Hang on. Yeah, that was decent, Steve. Well done. Right. He's done some interesting stuff before, particularly with some Street Fighter 2 music in the background. But this one, I haven't heard this, so be interesting to see what he does.
Right.
Although interesting thing with Starlight Town, he actually managed to make a romantic rap song out of it. Don't ask. Just waiting on Raiden.
I am ready.
All right. In 3, 2, 1, Sickle. Surprise me. Play.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I like the beats, but the guy's voice is kind of too lowish.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Is it me or does it sound like his voice is he's singing on top of the music, not with the music? There's something about the sound mix. There's something about the sound mixing that's not right, but I can't really explain what's wrong. Also, it sounds like he's whispering.
A little bit. It's not bad. It's just
it needs work.
Yeah. After this bit, I'm gonna have to call it a day.
All right.
Well, Sickhill, I did a reaction video like you requested. Gonna be honest, man, that's not some of your best work. It's not awful, but I've heard you do better. That's just my honest opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because he has done better before.
I'm gonna believe you.
Let me give you an example. Now, right. Let me do the usual.
All right. I'm gonna have to call it a day.
Sure.
I'll see you guys next week. But my group is meeting, and I've got another person squawking in my ear right now. Yeah, guess who?
Does this person happen to sound like a South Park character?
He doesn't think so, but
or no, is this person allegedly sound like a South Park character?
It's a possibility, yes. All right. Well,
Okay.
I'll see you next week. You guys have a good night.
Yeah. All right, you too, Lydia. Take care.
You're welcome. Watch it.
All right, see you, Lids.
All right, good night.
Luego.
All right. Bye.
See you, Lids.
Goodbye.
All right. I think we'll probably make this the last one, just to give you a comparison that the guy can do better. Just yeah. Just wait till Raiden's ready.
Oh, already ready, actually.
All right. In 3, 2, 1, play. Photodemic.
That wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it sounded like he was singing at a much louder volume. The problem here is actually, ironically enough, the opposite of what was going on in the other video. Where in the other video, I felt like the vocal track was overpowering the musical backtrack. Here, it's like the musical part is overpowering the vocals.
Yeah.
So I feel like he hasn't quite struck the right balance between the vocals and the instrumentals. But he sounds a lot less awkward here, and it's like he's found his groove with this song. But then again, I'm not a music critic, so you can take my criticisms with a grain of salt.
He's done some good stuff in the past before, but according to what I'm reading from the comment section from the previous one, apparently his old channel got deleted, so not really a lot more I can sort of bring up. He did do a decent decent amount of lyrics to add to Starlight Zone, but the thing is, I can't really find the video that he did that with, because a lot of people are doing like reactions to it, but the actual original video doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
But
yeah, crazy thing. Yeah, for me the crazy thing, I was gonna show a video that had an anime called Kuroko no Basket, which translates to basketball, which Kuroko plays, and it was an AMV that had the song "Hit 'Em High," the Monstars anthem, and it was so good, but sadly WMG had to block it.
I don't know. Just can't win with some people.
Yeah.
I think if no one's got anything else to discuss, I haven't seen the Lego Movie 2 yet, Steve. I'm looking to see it. And as and when I do, it'll be at least a month and a bit down the line, because I've got 2 more movie reviews to come. The Inspector Gadget review is being released properly tomorrow, and I did take the I suppose not necessarily criticism per se, but I looked at the reaction that the original version got, and there's just one gag that's actually cut out of the review, and to be fair, it was only like 10 seconds long, so it doesn't really impact the review in any sense. But no, I mean, the guys enjoyed it last week, so it's all good, and Win knows what's coming. The other 3 don't, but she does. And as she said, she's sworn to secrecy. But I'm hoping it entertains. That's all I'm looking to do. Yeah, but I'm also looking to see Alita tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I saw it this weekend. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've been hearing it's actually doing it's actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, it totally is.
This pleases me.
You certainly don't need to read the manga. I'm sure a lot of people haven't.
I mean, I haven't. I mean, not to go on a tangent per se. I actually remember when this movie was announced. I mean, I remember seeing a Stars documentary called "Anime Drawing a Revolution," and I remember Battle Angel Alita was being talked about being a live action movie. I'm like, okay, and that was in 2007. So that tells you a lot of things. And lo and behold, kind of glad it came to fruition. It's doing well. It's actually looking pretty good without whitewashing half of it. Well, even though there was kind of sort of whitewashing with Rosa Salazar as the main character, what I've seen, she looked like she grasped the character well. I mean, I wish Scarlett Johansson took some tips from her, but that's another story.
I was wondering when you were going to bring that up.
Yeah, you know what they say. What they say: forgive but never forget. Well, I don't say forgive, but you know what I mean.
Well, here's the thing. James Cameron has been a huge fan of
Alita, anime.
Yeah, I mean
stuff.
I mean, he was very complimentary of the original Ghost in the Shell. Could you imagine what Ghost in the Shell would have been like if Cameron had directed it and not the other guy?
Man, I believe.
Who's he make? What's it?
I think, to be honest, if there's I don't know the sequel of that movie. And he get James Cameron on it, I feel like I would think he would do it justice, or better yet, I know the movie didn't do too well, but hopefully in the next couple of years he does it, and we're all and we're just all blown away what he does with it.
Yep. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's not to say that Rupert Sanders is a terrible director. I just feel like he was the wrong guy for the project. And having said that, if Cameron had been directing Scarlett Johansson, or as Random calls her, Scarlett Yo Can Act.
Damn.
Oh, he doesn't mince his words. You know this by now.
Yes. I've and sadly my dark side has taken notes from him.
If it had been Cameron directing Scarlett, I think you would have gotten a much better performance. And to be fair, the Major in the first movie didn't really have much of a personality per se. I mean, there are a couple of moments where you can tell the voice actress is doing more. But in terms of, say, charisma, akin to that of, say, Lisa Ortiz or, Cameron Diaz, people that are born with charisma and the X Factor, they could do that in any movie. But with Scarlett, she tends to need movies and material that works with her rather than against her. And as the Major, she does okay in places, but I feel like most of the time she is phoning it in, which doesn't exactly say much regarding some of her movie roles, but that's a story for another time. Again, if it had been Cameron, that's just my take on it. And if Alita does well, it'll kind of set the template. This is how to do live action animes properly. Maybe we'll get a remake of Dragon Ball Evolution, but better and not so sucky.
And not cringeworthy.
Nope. Although somebody at one stage said, "Can we have a live action Azumanga Daioh?" And I'm like, why? Especially with the way Kimura would be represented on the big screen. Like, no, dude.
Here's hoping that the upcoming Hollywood Gundam movie will turn out good.
Oh man, I got my eyes on that as well, dude.
Yep, it's like, please be good, please be good, please be good. Don't fuck it up.
I'm like, what the heck, yo? Ignore
that. It's World War II in space with giant robots. It's not that difficult.
Hopefully for you guys, he'll wash out the awful taste of G's savior.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh no.
Oh. And then you watch the movie. Oh. I'm actually tempted to make a movie like that and make a review. It's like, G Savior's the worst movie since My Son. How could it go wrong? You get fucking Nazis. You put them in space. You know, there was a little movie that did this whole thing before. It was called Star Trek.
Oh dear.
You may not have noticed it, but your brain did.
Oh man, I think that'll do. For obvious reasons, Win has not been able to make it this week. It happens sometimes. I mean, we know there's weather circumstances over in her neighborhood, so she wasn't obviously able to make it. But Win, you're always here with us in spirit, so hopefully next week we can be graced by your company once more. And unless anybody's got something else to add, I think we'll call it a day.
I would like to take a moment to pimp out the latest project that I recently completed with a whole bunch of individuals. If you go over to Amazon.com and type in the title of our anthology, Courage on Infinite Earths, a Kaiju versus Cancer anthology, you'll find yourself a book collection of short stories written by me and a little over 20 artists and writers who have all contributed stories involving our own individual characters, all involved in one big multiverse crossover where our characters are fighting an entity that is sort of like a representation of cancer. All the proceeds will go to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and it is available on Kindle and on paperback. Although the paperback edition, because of all of the color that would need to be printed for each of these stories, the paperback edition is $40, which I understand is quite a steep price. So I don't blame you if you go for the $3 Kindle version. So yeah, that is Courage on Infinite Earths, a new anthology that is connected to our ongoing charity project, Kaiju versus Cancer. So any of support would certainly be appreciative.
And I've already popped the link into the live chat, so anyone that's still watching.
Thank you very much, man. Totally appreciate it.
It's all right. Yeah, I think that'll do it for this week. Be back next week for some madcap hijinks, hopefully with Win this time. But from this week, I have been the Knight, and she was also the first president of Awesome, Lydia.
I have been the editor-in-chief, Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
And I have been the cybernetic but energetic mastermind fighting style, the last known mightiest disciple, Raiden.
Good night from the Knight.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.